Brian Dickinson, thanks for coming on the podcast. Brian is insanely accomplished, and I've been really looking forward to this show. He is a Navy rescue swimmer, one of only 2 solo summiters on Mount Everest, according to the Himalayan database, and author of Blind Descent and Calm in the Chaos.
Yep.
Brian, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great. Thanks for flying me out.
Absolutely. I'm pumped that you came out. So we'll kind of just start off a little bit from the beginning. You know, I was listening to your book, the last week, and I liked how you went into, you kind of are always a bit of a daredevil growing up, jumping, you see a mound, you want to jump it. You see a rock, you want to climb it. So let's kind of jump into your childhood a little bit and what kind of eventually led to joining the Navy, but, childhood growing up, scrapes, bruises, getting that adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
What was that like then growing up?
So I grew up in a very small town in Southern Oregon. There was like 2,000 people in the town in the 80s. So we didn't have all the distractions that we have today. Mm-hmm. So yeah, what else am I going to do? Be adventurous. Mm-hmm. Couldn't afford any video games or anything. So I was always outside, swimming in the rivers, jumping off cliffs. I grew up kind of in the mountains. So I was always climbing, but not like glaciated peaks, just hiking. And yeah, it was I don't know, it was good, but, also there's plenty of bad as well. Mm-hmm. Witnessed a lot of abuse that, kids shouldn't have to go through. So,
and like I said, we can kind of dive deep a little bit more into the way you kind of grew up, especially in Oregon. Mm-hmm. I think it's a bit different now with, I don't want to say helicopter parenting, but, the safety aspect of things. I mean, what ages were you running around and what ages were you, really kind of getting into it? You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a backyard, that's the world,
Yeah. And my backyard was the mountains. I don't remember an age where I wasn't on my own running around. Mm-hmm. I had an older brother and sister, so I'm the youngest. They weren't necessarily watching me, but maybe that was, maybe the parents thought that was the case. I don't know. But yeah, we were just always kind of on our own and fending for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know how that feels a little bit. I had 2 older brothers growing up, and I think it was the same thing of like, hey, take care of your little brother. And then they went to work and they're like, you're on your own, punk. And we're like, I was like, fine, that's cool. Yeah, like go with my buddy, we'll grab our bikes and ride around the neighborhood, Yeah. Right away, like I said, you wrote in the book that you're running around, finding jumps, scrapes, bruises, all that kind of stuff. Is there just something that just naturally drew you to that kind of growing up, like that, like I said, that adrenaline, that kind of, that adventure, some people are like, absolutely not. We're putting on a helmet and I ain't going 20 feet down the road to, what you were doing.
Yeah.
Especially in the 80s. I was like, it was the 80s.
Yeah. I don't it was totally the 80s. Things got real. Yeah. Cause I think I even put in the book when I rode my bike out of the back of the pickup truck, and it high centered, and from the truck went head first into the gravel and ripped my face all up. I don't know. I guess fearless until I had a reason to kind of figure out that fear. I've always been just wired that way to push myself beyond my limits. As I've gotten older, that's those limits, there's boundaries, for a reason. You got to enforce those boundaries, but at the same time, not just, play it safe all the time either, because that's not growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have like a favorite path you took? I mean, like I said, you got Oregon. I've never been out there. I've been to Washington State. Love the landscape. I think it's gorgeous. Heard Oregon's amazing. Like I said, I've always liked I'm a mountain guy myself. If I were to consider, wanting to be somewhere. I think
Are there any mountains out here in Minnesota?
Not really. We have like way up north, but like I've just been drawn to them. Like, some people are ocean people, some people are beach people, some people are, they like flatland or whatever, they're much into that. I've Afghanistan really brought it out, but even growing up when we would visit Colorado or, wherever we were going, I loved the mountains. I always thought they were phenomenal. And, anywhere you can take me for some gorgeous mountains, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in. But I imagine, Oregon said, is there anything that like, any path that you remember that you're like, yeah, this is where I like to go and chill, hang out, but the beauty of it.
So growing up, the house that I grew up until I was like 13, then we moved a couple of times. the path led to my grandparents, and they were across the creek. So I made like a rope swing. I made a drawbridge. I used to just get creative, just making forts and different things where I'd have to like swing like Tarzan to get across the creek. And my good buddy Joe would always fall in the creek. So he ended up being a rescue swimmer as well. So, but yeah, that was probably my favorite path because it was not only an adventurous path, going a few acres and then through the forest and the creek, but it was also like a path of safety because my own home wasn't, a safe environment, but my grandparents were. So it's probably adventurous, but more realistically, it was like, I want to go there because it feels safe.
Mm-hmm. And you want to dive into that a little bit more? I mean, what was that like growing up? What kind of household was it?
Just a lot of violence, alcoholism, that type of stuff. A lot of neglect. A lot of times we were home alone because their parents were at the bar.
Mm-hmm. So. Now, is that both your mother and father then too? So it's kind of like not because the stereotype is like, oh, dad's at the bar, mom's trying to keep together, but
no, they were both there, but yeah, my dad was more abusive.
Mm-hmm. And did that kind of drive you, drive you one to your grandparents' house, but two, that drive you to be a little more risk taking, to be out in the wilderness a bit more? Maybe to kind of get out.
The solitude of the wilderness, like nature therapy is huge. I don't, maybe unconsciously I was going that path. But I was always riding my bike everywhere, go with friends, jump off, 40, 60 foot bridges into the river and, rope swings and everything else. It's just we'd go rafting all the time. It was a lot of times you have an unsafe environment, but as a kid, you don't know right from wrong. Mm-hmm. That's all you know. So it's not until later that kind of realize that, it wasn't right. And, you kind of have to deal with that. And a lot of times it takes us, a lot of years or a lifetime to figure that out. Mm-hmm. But my grandpa was definitely like a father figure though. He was an alcoholic, but for 10 years, the main 10 years that, I had a relationship with him, he was completely sober. So he'd take me golfing and, he's just always there. He's the first person to show me unconditional love.
Mm-hmm. And what years was that then? Like you said, 10 years from your childhood into your high school or even after that?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of that core from like grade school to high school.
Mm-hmm. Which is obviously significant years growing up. And since he was, like I said, he was sober, was that an influence to join the Navy? I mean, like I said, you grew up in that type of household. It's what but like, were you kind of seeking a little bit more stability, or did your grandfather kind of guide you into, hey, like if you grow up in chaos, you think chaos is like that's normality until you go somewhere that's not normality. This is what
normality you don't realize you're surviving this whole time.
Yeah.
So my dad was in Vietnam. He was in the Navy. Mm-hmm. He was a jet mechanic. My brother was in the Navy for a short stint. My grandpa was in the Navy. So it wasn't uncommon. Mm-hmm. I don't think I ever truly had a drive I want to go in the military until got into some trouble. Did a little time in juvie. Yeah. But even then I had opportunities. I was always, played sports, I was all state soccer, had scholarship opportunities for that and art, random. But I don't know, I just wasn't really ready to just go straight into school and wanted to see the world. And again, military wasn't unfamiliar. Yeah. I didn't want to go in and do a normal job, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. So I got guaranteed at least a shot at becoming an aviation rescue swimmer. So then I kind of had to wait for that.
Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, if you want to talk about, you had your little stint in juvie. You said that helped drive to go into the Navy, or
it definitely showed me an option. Might not be heading the right direction. Hanging out with the right people. Yeah. And it was just a weekend, and I actually volunteered.
Oh, okay.
To go. It was so we stole a bunch of computers. Oh, okay. That the police in the local town had donated, and this is back when computers were brand new.
Oh yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah.
And then they found them. They brought them back, and then the next night we kicked in the door, and it was this private school. So, anyways, bad stuff, right? Like what were we going to do with computers?
The idea seemed a lot cooler than like the result. You're like, oh, let's get these computers. Like, well, what do we do with them now?
I know, try to sell them. But yeah, someone turned us in, so went in and turned myself in. Basically, you know, they called and were questioning. I'm like, I'm just going to go do the right thing.
Yep.
And then it was like, well, you have to pay this amount of money, or you can go to juvie. I'm like, I'll go to juvie. And it's like, man, I would have paid the money.
Oh, yeah.
It was crazy. It's like go in your bathroom and lock the door and for the weekend, you know, it's like, this is not a life that I want to live.
So it was only, like I said, it was only a weekend then in juvie.
And not even a full weekend. It's crazy. They let me out for good behavior.
After like 24 hours. 24 hours for good behavior. Yeah. That's wild. Well, and did they catch you guys because it was such a small town? Or, you know what I mean? Like you're in Oregon.
Yeah, exactly. It's a small town. Person that we had the loot in had a loud Jeep. Yeah. Like, oh, we heard this loud Jeep. Yeah. Who has a loud Jeep in this town? Yeah. Not too hard.
Yeah. They snatch you guys up. Yeah. The career criminal that didn't work out so well, which is good.
Hey, do it then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think I'd be a much better criminal now, though.
No. Yeah. We all learned stuff. Funny story about being a criminal. My, when we were in, I don't know why, but when we were on post in Iraq, me and my squad, we had we could talk in between each post, which is just like our little internal comms, you know? And like, I don't know why we ever got on the subject. Maybe because we're watching Heat or something, but we were all like, amazing film. And we were always talking about like, what's the best way to rob a bank? And so we'd spend like, these like 6-8 hour shifts on post in Iraq in the heat, nothing to do. And we're alone too. So it's like alone on each post, but like 6 or 7 posts and, guard towers overwatching our fob. And so we'd just get into the weirdest conversations. I always think about that. Like when people are like, oh, career criminals. And then we would always be like, yeah, I think this is the best way to like rob a bank, or whatever. And then
what is the best way?
We had a terrible idea. I don't even know what we came up with. We thought we were great because we knew CQB, which was like, well, I don't know where that gets you. It's like, I don't even
more time.
Yeah. They're like, just because we have like combat experience, suddenly we're like amazing bank robbers.
Right.
I don't even think if we got that far. I think we were like, well, if we did this, then, but then it's like, where do you stash the money? How do you, no one ever had any good solutions. It's always like, don't talk about it for a while or some crap like that.
Someone always leaks.
Yeah. And then there's the Rangers apparently in the 90s did do that and they got caught. I remember hearing a story about that. There's some Rangers that actually went, I think it was out in Washington State actually, I think. Yeah. They went and robbed like a bank or something like that. I could probably be botching that story, but I'm pretty sure that happened. But anyway, so.
You're saying it's real.
Yeah, it's got to be real. Yeah, it's on a podcast now. All right, so career criminal over, good to go, got that out of your system. And then, so you have some of the scholarships are even art you talk about, all-state soccer, is the influence to kind of get out of town? Like I said, what kind of leads you then getting into?
A small town.
Yeah.
And you can see some people that's their thing. You stay in the small town. I didn't know if it was my thing and I didn't want to be forced into that. I wanted to see some opportunity around the world. Just see what I was capable of. Not really, it's weird because it's a small seed and I don't remember if anyone ever really tried to plant that or anything, or if it was just in me. But because of the situation I grew up in, everything was performance-based. So I was always the best in all the sports and everything that I did, and I would get attention for it. So then it's this, attention seeking for the wrong reason. So let's just see how far this will go.
Yeah. And so then, like I said, attention seeking for the wrong reason. Then did you get some praise then from your parents then if you were, like I said, the all-state soccer kind of stuff?
But I don't know, it never felt authentic, because it was kind of, cause and effect. And there might have been drinking involved when that praise came through. So then it's like, okay, that doesn't mean anything to me.
All right. So then what's the journey then going in?
Yeah. So went in February of 93, went to boot camp in Orlando. During boot camp for any special ops, so that's SEALs, EOD, diver, SWIC, rescue swimmer, they have something called Dive Motivator. And I'm not sure if they still do. I know it went away for a little bit and then it came back. But it's basically you wake up at 3, 4 in the morning, and they try to weed out people early on. But it's getting that experience, holding bricks above your head in the water, running, just lots of push-ups, everything else. So we'd be working out like crazy while everyone else is sleeping, and then by the time they wake up, we're heading back and joining up with the group. So there's a bit of discipline involved there, and but that was good. You get to test out at that point. So if you make it, they weed some people out, but you're a little bit more prepared to go in. And then from there, go straight to air crew school. So that's like aviation physiology and the helo dunker, where you're crashing in a helicopter in the pool and egressing, just all the, medical and, learning all the devices, everything else, some land survival. So that's just the funnest course you could ever go through. Like, it was awesome. And then from there you go to the least funnest course you can go through is aviation rescue swimmer school.
So if you're going through all that, you went through the medical portion, and it's kind of like you're doing up front loading all this like amazing skills, and then it's like, all right, test your skills at Navy swimmer. I'm surprised they don't do that first and then send you to. And
they've flipped it.
I was going to say, because if people are dropping out, or you know what I mean, if they make the swimmers, because that's just insanely challenging. It's like I don't know. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like it's not selection, but it'd be like sending SEALs through SQT and then be like, all right, now we do buds. Like, oh, you're almost qualified, now we do buds. It's opposed to.
The difference is if you fail through rescue swimmer school, not everyone in air crew goes to rescue swimmer.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, all right. So it's not part of the the dedicated pipeline.
Like pilots and everyone.
Okay.
So it's just getting all this training, because if you fail through rescue swimmer school, then you can go to a fixed wing.
Oh, okay.
So back in my day, S3s, P3s, doing like anti-submarine warfare, or tanker, whatever.
That sounds amazing, though. So, like, you guys learned how to do all sorts of stuff in that school, like I said, the physiology, the medical. How far did they go in? I mean, you're doing some, even before you go into the rescue swimmer aspect of it. How far did they go in? I mean, how well are you guys trained?
Through aircrew?
Yeah, through aircrew. Yeah.
I don't know. I would say it's surface level, because you're doing so many different things. Understanding, how to swim and survive in the water for long distances, floating with all your gear, you getting hoisted up in a helicopter, if you ever end up in that situation, living off the land. But most of the more in-depth training comes later. So it's kind of this layered approach from start to finish to become rescue swimmer, be qualified in the helicopter. It's just under 2 years. So it's you're in it for a long time. SEER school, like everything.
And so once you get to the not so fun part, so what's that experience like? I mean, compared to everything everyone hears, you guys are swimmers. I mean, that's insanely hard. I know Marine Corps has got the recon aspect, but they're huge on the swimming aspect, and I can't imagine. I mean, you guys are going to be insane. Like, what kind of stuff did they put you guys through? All that.
Yeah, they're. Not everyone is good swimmers.
You find out real fast.
There's a high attrition rate in rescue swimmer school. So when I went through, it was the Coast Guard and Navy together. Now they're separate. We had a couple of Marine Corps in there. But yeah, it's the physical side of it is pretty ridiculous. You're back when I went through, at least. I know they do things differently. It's still like physically tough. It's just the way they do that is different. We'd be locked out in push-up position forever, and just have just rock hard abs because we're doing so many flutter kicks and sit-ups and then running on the beach. And they're just trashing you in the morning before you even touch the water. And typically after, the morning, doing all the workouts, running, everything else, you go in and do some classroom, advanced first aid and look at the rescue devices, everything else. And then you get in the water, full gear all the time. So that's, harness with, knife flares, just everything. Flotation, not inflated, but, worst case scenario, mask, fin, snorkel, and just swimming, miles of swimming, buddy tows, so there's the physical side of it. But then you get into like life-saving. Now they call it water jiu-jitsu. So things have evolved since I've been in, but a lot of it comes down to the same thing. It's like life-saving. when you jump from a helicopter, middle of the ocean, down pilot, no matter what the situation, people are in shock. They're panicked. Likelihood is they're seeing you as flotation. So they're jumping on you, trying to, take you down. And you're no good to anyone if you're if you're not proficient in the water. So life-saving is the ability to take control of that survivor using pressure points, different maneuvers. When I went through, and they've changed this now, is you took the survivor down. So you take them deep. And typically that induces panic, and they'll try to get away from you, gain control of them. Well, of course, in school, they're locked on. They're never going to let go. So you have to use, perfect, like precision pressure points, and then different moves, breaks and releases to gain control, flip the person around, and then get them to the surface. And of course, they're thrashing, they're spinning on you, and to get them in a rescue strop and hoisted, 70 foot up into a helicopter. So that evolution itself weeds out probably more than any, just because you have to get it so perfect. And if you suck water, you panic, you have like one shot, if you screw it up, then, you might have one more shot and then you get rolled and you're out. But it's good. But you're blindfolded half of it, because you never know when the person's coming. You get hit, you suck water, it doesn't matter, take them deep, do your maneuvers, get back up, and you're both throwing up water. And
so you guys start surface level then, where it's kind of like, and then you're going down. Yeah. That's wild. And like you said, what was the training leading up to that? Because obviously they don't throw you in right away. Like, do you guys have a few days or like a week to be like, this is how we're going to do this? And, you got one shot, or not one shot, but like, leading up to that, like, how do they train you on doing that? Because it's fascinating. I do scuba diving myself, but like I want to get into free diving, and the foundation I'm with, my buddy is trying to get wounded vets into free diving a bit more. And I imagine that would probably help, but like, that takes a long time training, and when you're doing what you guys are doing, like, how do guys develop that, even if they're swimming a lot, doing your breath holds or being able to perform, at not say muscle failure, but like muscle failure, and also being under the water and performing everything you need to do. What kind of prep is done before, and do they teach you guys techniques? Is there, before you guys get into that hard stuff?
Yeah, all of the above. It's a great question. Because just throw you in the water, figure it out.
Yeah,
you might do that just to see how you do, but for the most part, a lot of it starts outside of the pool. So like for life saving, so we're learning all the different techniques. Front head hold release. You go through it on each other over and over, and then you do it in the water with each other, practice, and then you'll be tested on it the next day or whenever. But like, there's so much more to it. So we would do underwater swims, the full length of the pool, come back on the surface, sprint, underwater, just continually do that. Or hold the person's feet in front of you. Now you're one has arms, one has legs. So everything that we're doing, it's about remaining calm. So remaining calm in the chaos. If you don't panic kills. If you don't panic, you can usually get through anything. And if you have a shallow water blackout or something else, that's a good chance they'll revive you and you get back in. But it shows like you're in it. You're not going to quit. There's no sides of the pool in the middle of the ocean. If you're going to quit in a pool in training, you're definitely going to quit in the middle of the ocean. You cannot replicate an ocean in a pool. They try. They have the wave machines and the sprays and everything else and the noise. But, helicopter rotor wash, it's insane. It's like throwing rocks in your face and you're trying to swim towards it with a survivor, attached, and then get him or her hoisted up, in their device. So yeah, one of the evolutions, I don't know if they still do this, but they wrapped us in a parachute with the shroud lines, everything, and they threw us in the pool.
Really?
They said, get out. And the whole thing is remain calm. All you have to do is wave your hands back and forth because you're pinned to your side. It'll balloon that chute out and you'll start sliding from that chute. But if you start panicking and thrashing, those shroud lines are just going to mummify you. You're going to suck water. You're going to pass out, maybe die. And a dead rescue swimmer is not good for anyone.
This is good. Yeah, exactly. It's not good for anybody. That's wild. So I didn't even think of that. I always just think of like, oh, you're at the pool. They're doing the thrashing. I've seen that kind of training before. But so they have like giant wind machines. You guys are doing like wave machines and all that kind of stuff. I mean, do they make? I mean, it is chaos, I imagine, because if you're jumping into the ocean, if you're down, down pilot or down the aircraft, that's going to be probably worse conditions. So not just like hey, we're at the pool, doing that type of training. So what other kind of scenario? I mean, that's wild. They just wrap you up and throw you in, but it is a good lesson though. Like you said there. I imagine, did they tell you the technique? They were kind of like, hey, this is what you do. Don't panic and figure it out, Yeah. Yeah. Even when I shouldn't say they're telling you the secret, but then you're kind of telling you like, hey, this is how you pass. Do you still have people that just
telling someone something and then having them do it?
Yeah. They'd be like, you will pass. Just do this. And everyone's like, looking around like, okay, we got to do that. And then it's still, insane.
There's a high attrition for a reason. So you weed people out. If and it can be pretty obvious. There's some people that you would think should have made it through, and then there's some that like maybe they shouldn't have, but get out to the fleet and they're legit. So back, I don't know, when I went through, there was definitely some bullying on the, they just killed a trainee just a few years prior, so that was kind of top of mind. But there was kind of this bullying attitude, and they were trying to make safety first and everything else. But there was still
like the hazing aspect or whatever. Yeah. What years was that? I guess we haven't gone over the years like that you went through.
I went through in 93.
93. Okay. So it was the 90s still. So.
Yeah.
But it was the 80s, and like, it was the 90s, and like I said, that's still at top of mind. I mean, rescue swimmers, like we were talking about before we started the podcast, getting people's stories out there, how, that community, how prevalent is it, like kind of like the pride of being a rescue swimmer. I've seen The Guardian, with Kevin Costner and
Ashton Kutcher plays your role. You've arrived.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They were Coast Guard, I believe, Coasties or whatever. But within that community, I mean, how it sounds amazing, it sounds super high regard, but it's like something you don't hear, like a profession you don't hear about. When you're going through that, is that something now? It's like, oh yeah, the Navy knows, hey, these are no shit legit guys, rescue swimmers. Is that like a culture that's pretty well respected even amongst like everyone knows SEALs, but no one knows rescue swimmers, Yep.
Yeah. No, it's definitely respected. But yeah, even beyond like the life saving, that's when the training starts getting, more difficult. That's when you start doing multi rescues. So I don't know if you want to go through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I've never even heard of this stuff. So I mean, this is like when I talk, I got buddies that are SEALs, are great. I've had on, I hate to say, I know the Bud's pipeline, I've never heard of the rescue swimmer pipeline or what you guys do. Like said, the fact that you even had wind machines and all this, like that's a whole nother element. And I've seen it, and play for like films or whatever. But I mean, to be like, oh, this is our training environment. That's nuts, like especially swimming in the ocean. Been there. I'm a scuba diver, so I've been in some pretty rough situations. But that's scuba diving. At least I got oxygen strapped to my back, Whereas like, no man,
you didn't have any oxygen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're doing it. So yeah, I'd love to go through it. I mean, it's amazing.
So for multis, it's multiple rescues. So in a lot of scenarios, it'd be like maybe a couple. In my time, it was like F-14 pilots, F-18. So you'd had to know all of the different gear that they would be ejecting and in the water. A lot of times a parachute ballooned over them, maybe an oxygen mask that didn't, get detached and they're sucking salt water, and maybe someone's in a raft. Always had a free floater who is panicked and trying to take you down. And, one of them might have cardiac arrest. So the first thing we had to do was get up in the helicopter, which was a platform, and training starts at that point. Everything's safety. If you're not putting your gunner's belt on, you're not, doing everything correctly, assessing the situation, you may fail. They'll let you go through the whole evolution and you think you did great. And it's like, oh, by the way, you missed this one thing early on, you fail. You have one more shot.
But attention to details.
Attention to details, huge, because you'll kill someone. And yeah, super important. At the time, you're just like, come on.
Yeah.
But as you get in the fleet and actually you do some mission sets, you realize how important it is. But yeah, as soon as you crawl to the doorway and your feet are hanging out, your fins, you're seeing the chaos down below. Everyone is screaming. And, as soon as you take the gunner's belt off, get a tap, pop that, 3 taps on the shoulder, look for any debris that you're going to jump into, jump from the helicopter. Underwater, you're clearing your mask as you're looking up, and the free floater is coming for you, trying to get you from behind. So you're swimming underwater, get control of him or her, and they're thrashing, and until you can calm them down, try to hoist them, get them in the rescue strop, and they're spinning on you. Now you're doing life-saving techniques. And at the same time, there's a pilot face down in the water. Like, who are you going to save? You can't save them all. So it's that mindset of just assessing the situation, doing what you can, defending the reason that you did it. And most times the pilot is going to have shroud lines just tied in knots. Shroud lines are, as you know, from the parachute, the lines that attach to your harness, to the risers. It'll be like tied in knots around their neck, and they're just, it's a mess. And when you're in water and you're trying to deal with that, it's really tough because you can't see anything. You can't lose grip. You have to be in close in control of the survivor, because if they turn on you, then now it's an active survivor, and puts you both at risk. So I know they've changed it, but we'd have to do a spinal highway, go down their flight suit in the back, put their butt basically on your head, so you're still holding them, and you're just reaching down and sweeping their feet, trying to get the lines off. We have J-hook knives where you could cut them, but when you cut one, it becomes two. So that's like a last resort. And, once they're good, you got all their, all the safety mechanisms in place, oxygen masks off, they're not sucking water. You typically don't start first aid until you get them in the helicopter. But you could give a couple breaths. I mean, everything's at the discretion. Might have to lower a rescue litter and then get them in the litter, which is a lot of work.
So you guys are doing this when you're doing the training. The helicopter is you guys are using legit helicopters, correct? Or is it training or
training? No,
okay.
It's a tower.
Tower, okay, and then
but it's blowing down rotor wash, everything else. In real life, yes, but the helicopter it'll usually be up about 70, 80 feet in a hover, and it'll back off, give us space to work, because the sound and the rotor wash and the forever tinnitus. What? Yeah. What's that ringing? But yeah, so it's when we finally get the last survivor up, you might go up with them. That's when the moulage, so the advanced first aid, happens. And you'll have sucking chest wounds, they're squirting blood across the way. I remember sticking my knee on someone's femoral and trying to stop the bleeding while I'm doing chest compressions. And then the free floater active survivor is in shock, trying to jump out the door. So it's like, what do you, what do you do, right? So you got to stop one to restrain the other. And, in my case, I asked the first crewman, the hoist operator, I'm like, can you help restrain? He's like, no, I'm busy. They're not going to help. So you do what you can, try to close the door, zip tie the guy or whatever, and then get back to saving lives.
Yes. Well, so do they have, again, it's kind of a technical, when it comes to the equipment, like I said, they're splurting blood, all this stuff. So is that is it, not dumb question, but is it some of them dummies or some of them,
it's all real people.
Real people. Okay. Yeah. And then they have this is more technical, do they have stuff attached to them then? Because we've gone through that first aid stuff as well, where they got blood shooting everywhere or whatever.
Yeah, it's total Hollywood.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Tic Tacs, spitting them out because might have hit the canopy when you ejected, lost your teeth.
Oh, wow.
Now you're choking on your teeth.
Wow. So they go super in depth into, I imagine a lot of this stuff is after actions of what have actually happened in the past.
Yeah. Or some cool movie they saw.
Or some movie. Yeah. It was 93. It was 1993. So then, even before leading up to that, you're going through this course. Are there stories that stuck out to you that stuck with you in your training that they did talk about hey, this scenario happened, these rescue swimmers performed under these circumstances? I go through sniper school, Marine infantry school. Obviously we have our legends, from Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, Fallujah, this is what these guys have done. Did you guys, is there a story that kind of sticks out, or, motivational stuff that rescue swimmers are have been known for, hey, this is a story that this happened, and you can draw motivation from that or inspiration? Is there anything that kind of stuck out? And no,
I don't remember ever hearing stories.
Yeah.
It was horror stories.
Yeah,
it was just
or more horror stories. Even the horror stories was there. They were I don't want to be that guy. Opposed to oh, that was amazing.
Well, it'd be cause and effect. If you or you just made a mistake. You did this in real life, that person would be dead. And you have to live with that. Can you live with that? We can't. We're not going to pass you. You know, you see people like getting, you know, rolled and, you know, DORing left and right. It's more of just the fear. And for me, failing was not an option. And I'm halfway through life-saving, like the evolution that week. So I'd been in school for a couple weeks at this point, rescue swimmer school, and I got news that my grandpa shot himself. So, as you know, military, like physically, you can usually get through anything. Mentally, that'll weed out most people. If you're mentally weak, you can't grow that into a mental toughness. Then, if you can't do that in training, you're never going to be do it. Once bullets are flying. But that was really tough because that's my father figure. Yeah. And I actually tried to. I didn't tell anyone, and I was just not there. And I don't remember. I failed like a written test, like first aid, like the easiest thing ever. How many compressions to whatever. And they took me aside and were yelling at me and what they do and everything. And then I confessed. I'm like, my grandpa, I just found out he shot himself. And they're like, then they really yelled at me. Yeah. You idiot. Like, because I wasn't, being honest, and that could put a crew at risk as well. So I had to take emergency leave. Went and saw him. He was still alive. He had shot himself, but he survived that. He found out he had cancer. So he didn't live much longer. But in the hospital, the last thing he told me was, he's proud of me, and, just do what you have to do and be the best at what you do. I'll always remember that. And I left. I went back. I got rolled to the next class, right into life saving. Actually, before I even did that, the instructors, a instructor, I should say, some of the instructors were pretty cool. One in particular, he wanted me out. I don't think he liked me anyways.
Just had it out for you.
Yeah. And I was kind of a smart ass anyways, and doing cartwheels on the O course. And, but either way, he's just like, mentally, there's no way he can make it through. So I had to go in front of a board and stood there and pleaded my case. And I told them, I remember I told them what my grandpa told me. And they were like, well, we'll give you a shot. And then after that, I've made it through, never failed anything. And so that was big, because mentally I had to, figure it out. But I also realized later, looking back, like that's when I really started compartmentalizing things that were really affecting me, trauma in my life.
Yeah. And I'd say, I've been there too myself. You just have to, this is it. This is what's going on. Move forward, think about it later. It is, when you compartmentalize, it's like survival, but it's also like, like I said, how it is. It's like, hey, don't show weakness in front of the guys. This did happen, but you have to be there for them. It's like everyone's their own stability. Like if that guy's losing it, I might lose it, but I can't lose it, so he doesn't lose it. We're still on mission. We still got 3-4 months left in the combat rotation. Yeah. We'll deal with this later.
Trauma bonding.
Yeah, exactly. Trauma bonding. And so, how much longer then did you have after that when you have to plead your case left in training?
I was halfway, so I had a couple of weeks left.
Yeah.
Yep. And then as soon as you pass a couple multis, do a nighttime multi, pass that, and then the next day. Back then they gave us our UDTs, the Daisy Duke shorts. You got your giblets out one side and it's hanging out. And that was like a proud moment, because we were still using like the boot camp shorts. I think they give you like all kinds of cool stuff nowadays, but that was like a big deal. And then we went out and did our first jumps out of an H3 and big helicopter. And
this is the bumblebee looking one? Or which one's the H3? It's not. It's like the Chinooks.
Kind of like no. It's like a Top Gun. So it's the big. I don't know how you describe it. Like
the helicopter. Or sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, not the Black Hawk looking.
No, but
that I flew in.
Yeah, but I think we call them the bumblebees, the CH-50, the 53s.
53s are bigger.
Oh, okay.
So that's the Sea Stallion. So it's somewhere in between, but they're still massive.
Yeah.
So if you think of like the Apollo 13 pickup, all those old school.
All right, because I was like, I think I know that one.
a lot of space though, man, because you could run and like do flips out of that thing, but But even in the old days, you know, they're sitting in the back smoking, hydraulic fluid like pouring on their backs. Like, it was crazy.
It was the 90s.
We just keep going back to that.
So you guys make it through. You get your UDT shorts. I mean, yeah, I imagine you got to be just like ecstatic. What was the attrition rate there? Surviving, so survive.
Yeah, it seemed like back then it was like 60%. But to be in the same class and not get rolled to another would be even less, because usually you'd roll to the next and then you might make it through, learn your lesson. But yeah, that was, and I saw a lot of those guys that, they were going to go off to fixed wings and everything else, and they did well. Some guys, they were just, that's all they wanted. They were destroyed over it. So it's tough. Maybe they went back later in life. I don't know.
Yes, I've seen that with Scout Sniper School. Yeah, it sucks. Guys that are just like ready to go. And I always say it's like because there's no pipeline to get there. It's almost like luck and fate plays its cards. And at certain time periods, it's like some units will send you, maybe they won't. Maybe you get there, same thing. There's guys I knew that the instructors were gunning for them, so there was no way they were going to pass, and they didn't. Yeah. And there's no going back. And I know it sticks with them. Because for us that's a big deal, and then for me, yeah, it's like it carves the path for the rest of your life. I'm sure for you being a Navy swimmer, and that's huge. The same, it's being a Scout Sniper, that changed my course of what I could get access to, what kind of training, what kind of missions, respect, that kind of stuff, or having that under your belt and whatnot. So you guys are pumped, you graduate. What was life like in the fleet when you finally, you cut your orders, rocking and rolling?
No, we still had.
Oh, you still had a ton of money?
Yeah, we still had
okay.
a year or more of training.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because we all went to anti-submarine warfare school.
Okay.
So we were operating the sonar and sonobuoys, all that stuff.
It was the 90s.
They still do. I mean, it's changed a lot. But,
yeah.
But yeah, we did that, and I went. Then I went out to either go to Jacksonville or San Diego back then. So I went to San Diego, went to SEER school. So that was fun. Did you go to SEER?
No, I missed it twice. Had two slots.
Wouldn't say you missed it.
I know. Yeah. I think it was 2 times I was slotted to go. One got pulled for me the first time because of they were. It was before my second pump, and it was. But then somebody from the MEU took it from one of our whatever. It's a different unit. And I was like, all right, cool. And then I was going to second time before Afghanistan. And they're like, hey, they put my name in. I was like, sounds good. Whatever, I'll go. And then I had switched over to regimentals to go on my deployment to Afghanistan. Well, that's like 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines, and 3rd Marine Regiment, so a completely different unit. So I was training to go back to Afghanistan. So they were like, well, if you want to go, we'll send you, because we can't send someone in your slot. And I was like, well, I can't, because I'm literally doing a training package to go to Afghanistan. Yeah. So that was the second time. So no, I never went. But I had a bunch of guys in my platoon that went, and I guess, yeah, you're right. I didn't really miss it, but I kind of wanted to get that under my belt.
It's weird, huh?
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I was like, man, I kind of want to go.
I really want to get waterboarded.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I heard the horror stories, like all of it, and I'm like, kind of want to get that under my belt, but.
No, it's good. I mean, being tortured, all that stuff, the survival stuff it's great. But I think the interrogation side is, you learn so much just from bend like a tree, don't snap. And so they do really well with that. Yeah. You can use that in negotiations and everything else in your life. And my wife hates it.
Work well for you, not for you. Yeah, not for your wife. Yeah. That's awesome. Anything else? Did you guys do like the rabbit, or how long? There's different levels of SEER though, isn't there? So what? Like, I know there's some crazy SEER levels.
Yeah, they have NSW now. And
yeah.
SEER.
Yeah, because I think the Marines, we went through, it was only like the week-long one, but it's only like the last 3 days or something. I shouldn't say only. Everybody came back from that like, oh my God, it was wild, But I think it was like a week of classroom and then like 48 hours of escaping or something like that. I think it was only like 3 hours.
Yeah, it's probably the same. We had Marine Corps with us.
Yeah.
Some SEALs, but
because it's not only, it's a lot, but I've heard of like other crazier ones or I don't know. Like, I might be wrong though too.
I feel like mine was a week of class and a week of in the field.
In field training. Yeah.
Because we were in think we were in the prison camp for 48 hours.
Yeah, that's what it was. The prison. Yeah. Because no matter what, they catch you or whatever.
They have to. Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah, I never got caught.
Yeah. Yeah. They like, hey, you gotta.
Even when they did, I don't know. I already knew what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would make you just drink every bit of iodine water that you have. So I'd just dumping mine out. I didn't see them coming. Got knocked around a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So then, going from that, so you had a year full of training. So you had SEER school. What other type of stuff they put you guys through?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, just because of the acoustics and everything, there was a lot of like, I don't know, Common Core acoustic, that type of stuff. And just, we had to know, it was all behind locked doors. We had a secret clearance for knowing all the different submarines, different frequencies that they might, run at certain depths and everything else, knowing oceanography. So there was a lot of that. It's weird because you go through like intense schools to like, learning about, I don't know, maybe some people really love that stuff. But I think most people are like, half of my class took the CLN test. We were, going to just use this as a stepping stone. And some of the guys did end up going, but because it was right after the first Gulf War, everything was like paused. So you had to do like your first tour. And by that time I was good. Ready to go.
Yeah.
But the majority then is getting trained in the fleet replacement squadron. So where you actually are flying in the helicopter, learning everything about the helicopter, doing all the different mission sets. So lots of flying, lots of simulators.
And so what do you do with the submarine? Like, so you're learning about different, obviously it's like secret clearance stuff, but like what does the Navy swimmer do with submarine? Like, is it for rescue? Like, what's that scenario? Yeah. Like how would that work?
Yeah. So,
I just don't know. Like how, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not, I mean, I've had a medevac off of a submarine that had to emergency surface. But I was hoisting.
Oh, okay.
So we're hovering and matching the speed and everything. And that was cool. I think I was on the cover of Rotor Review magazine.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
But no, it's true anti-submarine. Like we fly with torpedoes. We are the anti-submarine asset. So we're acoustic and tactical systems operators.
Oh, on top. So it's not just, so like you're saying you guys have torpedoes and you would supposed to chuck them off the side. But yeah. But
no, actually we were Pax Rivers where they do a lot of the testing. And they came out because they were testing a torpedo, no matter how fast, angle, whatever, when you drop it, it needs to hit at a certain degree, and it deploys a little parachute. So I want to say I dropped like 19 torpedoes one day. It was cool, but we were like kicking them off the side. We were trying to disrupt it, and just every time that chute would deploy, and it would just go in perfectly.
Wow.
And then you had another helo come around and recover it.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, That's a big difference when people wonder, like Coast Guard rescue swimmer, Navy rescue swimmer, PJs. It's kind of that. Coast Guard are very much coastal. They're getting a lot of rescues. They don't even do hoist operating. Like they're purely jumping in the water, doing the whole air crew and rescue swimmer thing. PJs more on the CSAR side, combat search and rescue. Navy is everything in between. So every mission set is just different. A lot of times you don't even know what you're getting into. You may brief for something, then it changes. So we're always dipping sonar. We're protecting the carrier and all the ships, making sure there's no bad guys out there.
Yeah.
And then if they are, then we have to respond. And it could be even P3s or different aircraft that are littering the area with sonobuoys, and we could pick those up, or we're working with the different assets, or even underwater communication with submarines. So yeah, that's our main rate. That was my main rate. It was anti-submarine warfare operator. I don't know what it's called now.
Yeah.
Something else.
Did they train you guys up then, like say anti-piracy? I know it's a lot bigger thing now, but was that something like that would fall under you guys?
Yeah, we were all aerial gunners.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Double SC. So definitely photographers. Like so many times we were in such a vulnerable position, Persian Gulf, just getting eye level with a ship, making, taking pictures with the old school cameras, bringing them back, have them develop them. So you just never know. You see some dude like run across, you're like jump on the M240, like, no, we're good. Just always just on high alert. So yeah, and over in Kuwait, we would shoot up all the old tanks, that whole line of tanks out there. So that was actually one of the coolest flights, just out there, just sparking all the tanks. I almost took out a Shepherd. It's like out in the middle of nowhere. pilots didn't even see them. Like the sand is just poof, 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 popping. I was like, oh, ceasefire. Like a little bit more. There's pink dust. And I'm like, crap, I got to live with that.
Yeah, really. Yeah, just like having a good time. Today's going to be a great day. They'd have smoking some innocent dude. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, things you don't hear. Yeah. And then like the A-10s would just come in, you know, you hear Warthog inbound, just like waxing the tanks and everything. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. So then, it was the 90s, but like, did you guys, you know, like said, you're doing machine gunning, doing photography. Was there a time that they're like, hey, you are going to have to get on ground and, you know, scrap it out? Like, was there any kind of training for that or a mindset to be like, you know, you have the PJ, PJs are sealed, but I mean, like, if you guys are the asset, you're the asset, you know, it sounds like you said you have a wide range of mission sets.
Yeah. So we're combat search and rescue, at least the HS were back then. So we had HS, HSL. So HS were on the carriers, HSL on the smaller boys. Now it's totally split and you have like very much CSAR specific folks and they're legit. They're getting training well beyond like we did. We're like, I don't know, jack of all trades, but we had to be master of all, you know, that type of thing. But it's impossible. You're spread so thin. So some people would kind of levitate towards more CSAR training, NVG qual, all that stuff, you know, the pilots doing the same, you know, just insertion and extraction, spy rig, you know, bringing in SEAL teams and EOD and, you know, all that fun stuff, take down a ship. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, like I said, this is the stuff I have no idea that, you know, yes, rescue swimmer, but you guys are.
Rescue swimmer is like 5% of what we do.
Which is like crazy to think about because like I said, I think about what you guys were, you know, that's your title. And it's like, no, we're doing all this other stuff, which is like insane. So was there a school that stuck out to you? You guys did all this training, or was there a training school or scenario that you're like, wow, this is awesome. I didn't know that we got to do this type of stuff. That kind of like stuck out, you know, and be like, they sent you to, I don't know, sniper school or you know what I mean? Like something like Halo or something just kind of like out of left field that you're like, no, can be your guys' lane, you know, if this happens. Like I said, you guys are already covering a ton of fields already. Like I've counted like 5 jobs that you did under rescue swimmer, you know,
hitting the surface too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the CSAR stuff was cool because I had already done a deployment to the Gulf and, you know, just kind of doing a school hard knocks type of thing. And actually getting some like actual training, like going out in Camp Pendleton or different, you know, mountainous areas and having like one wheel of the front of the helicopter, you know, as we're hovering and we're deploying whoever, extracting whatever, you know, force penetrators, you know, dropping it down, trying not to chop up trees. And, you know, so at night, NVG is just like your situational awareness just has to be like on.
That's wild. So you guys would be dropping off assets and stuff like that. So like I said, I didn't realize that would be rescue swimmers that would be in that helo as you guys are, you know, inserting whatever team.
Yeah, and the rescue swimmers, there's very rare that there's a dry crewman. So both assets in the back, air crew in the back, are rescue swimmers. And now they have medics as well, like on certain mission sets, which is nice because I always say they taught us enough to keep people alive until we got them to someone who had a clue. And
that's same with us too. We were the same way. Like just keep them alive till the bird comes.
Tourniquet, Jeffy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Man, this guy has a lot of tourniquets. Get that one off his neck.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then if I think about it, then so is that rescue swimmers that are on the back of like the Chinooks when the SEALs like pop into like they put the back ramp down and you see the guy. It's a crew chief, but I imagine that's a
if it's Navy.
It would be Navy,
so
I believe.
So that'd be
Yeah. Because I mean, if it's 1/60th, I hope those guys know how to swim because that's a pretty shady, you know, like running the boats right in. I mean, it's like touching in water, you know, and whatnot. So I was like, oh shit, that's pretty wild. It's cool, you know. Looks awesome.
Yeah, I don't know though, because they're Army, but they still go through their own training. So I don't know as far as rescue swimmer, and I don't know if they're a swimmer asset because you'd have to be qualified and have all the gear and everything.
Yeah. So then you got through your training, you finally hit the fleet, or you're finally, eventually, eventually. And then, so then, you know, what was your first mission out, you know, like doing the job. Now you're getting at it. Now, that meant you have like 4 years of commitment then now?
5.
5.
Yep. I ended up 6, but that's because I was on a Navy soccer team and snapped my ACL a week before I was getting out.
Yeah.
Had to extend.
Yeah.
Oops. So I went out. So when you're done, you get your wings. So you go out and, you know, put them in a pitcher of beer and slam the beer and, you know, get them in your mouth, and then everyone takes the backings off and punches them in your chest. So I still got mine. They're bent with a little blood on it. Got my DNA on there.
Yeah.
It's funny, man. Those things, your proud moments.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But went out to the fleet, went to a squadron called HS2. And yeah, just started working up, because you're always working up to deploy. So ended up going twice to the Persian Gulf for 2 6-month deployments as part of Operation Southern Watch. And yeah, every day, I mean, you realize, again, rescue swimmer is 5% of your job. I mean, it's larger, but you're always doing different things. Vert rep, you know, just PAX transfers, holy helo, Sundays bringing the chaplain to all the different ships, hoisting them down.
I'm sure you love that. Yeah.
They're used to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as rescues, I mean, a lot of people will go through their whole career and never even get like an in the water rescue. You know, I had plenty of medevacs and more rescues outside of the Navy, especially once I got into mountaineering. But the other thing is, a rescue swimmer will never count a rescue unless you're like jumping out of the helicopter. They even get pissed if you're hoisted down. It's at nighttime. Typically, you're hoisted. You don't jump, because you might jump on some debris or something.
So then, I imagine. So it's not like you guys are like stationed somewhere. It's like, oh, now we got to do our job. So you guys do rotations. Then be like, this is, you know, you're not on call 24/7 stateside. Do you guys do shift stateside then?
We are, because we're on watch.
Okay.
But usually there's other assets in the air. So, you know, I've been called on those rescues, and by the time you get to the squadron, you come in and, you know, it's already taken care of. But when the ship deploys, then, like, I was on aircraft carrier, USS Constellation. The whole, you know, I forget, it was 6 helicopters. We all fly out, and where the helicopters are the first and last aircraft to take off and land. You always have to be in the air.
So there's always one rotating.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So starboard D. So on the right side of the aircraft carrier, we're out there just doing circles, dipping sonar, sleeping. Well, you know, F-18s, 14s, they're just doing their thing, just going around and around. If one ejects or man overboard or something else, then
there's already a bird in the air to like,
then we're on top of them, pick them up.
Nice. No. See, again, I didn't know any of this. This is pretty cool. So then, you kind of going through all that, was there any, like I said, I know in the book you guys had a few close calls, but was there anything that, you know, sticks out to you? I remember you were coming in, it might have been with a chaplain, where everything went, you know, like the fog.
Oh, yeah.
I
forgot about that.
You know, pretty dangerous mission or something, you know. I mean, like, you know, because I could get tore up pretty fast. And you know.
Yeah. And I just had one of my instructors got killed. So that's the other thing about it. You know, you lose a lot of people. There's a lot of mishaps. But yeah, we were doing vert rep. That's where you bring the cargo and it's hanging. You know, you can have thousands of pounds of, you know, weaponry or whatever. You never know what's below you. And the fog just came in, total whiteout. Couldn't tell up from down, left or right. And the pilots were just total IFR, using their gauges. I'm just staring out the hellhole. You know, I can't see a thing. I'm just waiting to get over the back of the carrier. And if we're too low, it's going to snag aft of the carrier. It's going to take us down. So that was pretty sketchy, because a big load will, like, you can feel the helicopter shifting it around. But you know, they're calling it in on their devices, and you know, we eventually made it over. I'm like, oh, see a deck. Okay, down now or whatever, just lower it. And I released it, got out of there, went forward, and yeah, stuff like that. You run into a lot of weather. We got struck by lightning once, and it like zeroed out all of our systems.
Really?
That was kind of cool.
So it's just like, it's like everything go black, but it's still flying. Yeah.
But everything just kind of like came back on, had to reboot and everything. But yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit.
My first training flight, we hit the water. Like I was telling you at lunch. You know, new pilot. You know, you have experienced pilot, new pilot. You have experienced crewman and me. And we're doing a practice rescue, and he just drops it down. Boom. My feet, had my feet hanging out the door in the water. and I'm yelling altitude, altitude, and they're pulling up the helicopter aircraft commander, grabs the controls and just grabs the collective, and the whole aircraft is just shaking like crazy. It was insane. And we pull up, water's kind of pouring out, and went down, had a conversation, and it was basically, that never happened.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I like that. Nothing ever happened. They're like, why is the bottom all wet? Man, nothing. It's all right.
But it's interesting because these little sprinklings of traumatic events, when we're in the military or just in life, they just accumulate. Like we were talking at lunch, our record books have zero, don't have any of those things in them because one, we don't ever want to be labeled like I'm, having an issue or something. So then we suppress it, and we're taught to do that really well. The military is really good at the short-term soldier. Long-term, figure it out yourself. But if you can operate, suppress it. And from what I hear, they've gotten better. I don't know. My experience wasn't very good.
Yeah. We were the same way. Who I was talking to about that, but we've talked about it too at lunch, but it is very much suppressed, you never went to medical. You never did any of that type of stuff. Like, you didn't want to be, I can't remember what we even called the guys going to medical. I forgot. But like on Mondays, it's like, God forbid you go and check out your wounds or go check out like, oh, I'm sick or something, like, oh, something hurts. Like, no, it doesn't. You just tough through it. And, because you don't want to be labeled going to sick bay all the time, or something like that. It's
Well, we couldn't fly, so you'd be down. And no one wanted that.
Yeah, or even going to like, hey, you got some issues, go to the chaplain. Like, we avoided the chaplain like nobody's business. You didn't talk to anybody about anything because one, they're gonna start. Oh, okay, what else is going on? You're like, well, you don't want to go down that road. And then the worst case scenario is that they're gonna take you off the deployment. And I hate to say it, but the worst thing you can do is take somebody off a rotation coming up. I mean, there's nothing like, taking, especially if you're young, for us, we do 2 deployments, maybe 3, but 2 is Marine Corps, 7 months, come back for, maybe 12 months and do another. That's the wartime rotation. Dude, take somebody off that's going to, their mental health is definitely going to collapse. Cause now, we feel like we let the boys down. You're stuck. They're all off going into combat, which is what you joined to do anyways. They're gonna, it's like, even I was that way, when we were thinking about going to Afghanistan in 2019, I was like, if half the unit's going to go into Afghanistan, the other half staying in Kuwait, then you send me to Afghanistan and I get out of this unit. Like, I'll go AWOL. Like, I can't.
People that haven't been through it don't understand that either. I was talking to my pastor about it, and he's like, oh my gosh, I've never even considered that. I said, well, think about going through all of your schooling. He has his doctorate in seminary, and you never got to preach. He's like, oh, okay. So that kind of like, you train for something, that's who you are. It's your DNA at that point. But it's even beyond that. It's the camaraderie. You're shoulder to shoulder with all these people that you're, just doing some of the craziest thing, and you trust each other with your life, and then you're going to sit on the sidelines.
Exactly. Or, even if you're like, hey, maybe I should see somebody, be like, yeah, no, I'll deal with that later, because it's why risk not getting on that deployment. Again, I agree. Some people are like, what? And it's like, when I volunteered for a third, I was like, let's get it on. Like, let's do this. I'm excited. I was so ecstatic when I found out I got, that somebody had dropped from the ETT, and I don't know how I heard about it this day. I don't remember how I heard about it, and called somebody up, and I was like, hey, and he's like, I don't know how you know that. That was like an hour ago. And I'm like, well, can I get on the team? And they're like, well, let's make some, long story short, finally got on, but it was like, I was like cloud 9, and people like kind of, they were like, what? Like, why are you excited to go back? I was like, Afghanistan's popping off. I'm going. Like, is what I joined to do. I don't want to, I hate to say it, but he's like, I don't want to miss out on it, and that's what I joined to do. And I agree with you. And like I said, you had that train accident. Was there anything else that, like any missions that really stick out to you, or anything, kind of, it's like, hey, that was wild, or that happened? And
I mean, get launched on a lot, middle of the night. So typically there's a crew that's alert 30. So you got to be off the deck in 30 minutes. So you can be sleeping, but you have it for a 24-hour period. So you're pre-flight, everything, you're ready to go. Got all your gear ready. Got launched on it was a major airliner went down in Mexico in the ocean.
Oh shit.
Searching all, for hours, never found anything, never even heard anything. So there's a lot of that, a lot of search, not so much rescue. And you never even know, like, are these things even legit? But you are the whole time scanning out NVGs, looking for any sign of life, going to the last, place that, they had spotted them or whatever, or saw them go down, but yeah, nothing. One that's interesting though is, I can't remember, I think it's my second deployment. We're in the Persian Gulf. We were pre-flighting to go, do whatever flight for the day, and got on an aircraft carrier, they'll blow a whistle if there's man overboard or ejection or something. That's like, if there's a whistle, it's like for a rescue swimmer, it's like, oh, that's the coolest sound ever. Anyone else, it's like their worst day. It's like our best day. And we got launched. What had happened was someone on watch spotted a group of, they were Iraqis floating in the water. So they were fishermen. Their boat had sank like 5 days earlier, and half the crew had been eaten by sharks. They were just barely hanging on. We launch. We don't know if they're good or bad. We got M240 and kind of assessing it. We ended up not jumping a swimmer, but coordinating a Zodiac with a surface swimmer. So the Navy has surface swimmers that are on the boat, and then aviation swimmers, which are helicopter. So they came around, had some Marine Corps with shotguns. And when you're in the water for too long, if you're in the water for a half hour, I saw your hot tub out there.
Yeah.
You get pruned hands, right? For days, it'll deglove. It separates from the bone. So if we're to jump a swimmer, try to hoist them up, you could deglove the whole body. How freaky would that be?
That would be wild.
You go with a skeleton. Yeah. Anyways, the swimmer jumps out of the Zodiac, the rib, and they basically rolled them on and, got them back. They're pretty stoked to be alive. But it's just you just never know what you're launching for. We were going out, I don't even know what we were doing. You fly so much, it's like, I have no clue. But that's what we were launching, last minute, like, oh, we're going.
That's wild. Especially the degloving aspect of it. Like we talked before, but the water gets in your skin or whatever. It's like, I think I'd ask you, I was like, well, how do you get out of that? And you just got to dry out. Essentially. Yeah. It's like, you just got to dry out. Yeah. Pretty much. Did you guys follow up with those guys? Did they just like hang out on the boat at all? Or
I don't know. Typically they'll bring, I don't remember flying them anywhere.
Oh, okay.
But usually that's how it would happen. So but we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They brought them down to medical and gave them a meal and let them dry out.
They were super stoked.
There's 5,000 men and women on a carrier, so you rarely see them.
What's life like then, day to day, beyond launching, like on a ship? I was never ship bound. I know a few guys, actually Marines do a lot of Muse, so I don't, but I was never on one. So what's like, for you guys doing your 6 month, you get your own like little specialty area, all that kind of stuff, like the perks, We
had our own berthing, our own air crew shop, because we're working around the clock. Most people on a carrier, I think it's like 12 on, 12 off. I can't imagine being on the boat completely. I just felt so grateful that we would fly. We left the boat because, I don't know, that's insanity. My brother was in prison the same time I was on my first deployment, and we would write each other letters wondering who had it worse.
Because I agree with you, because I think that was my like I was dreading that when I got stationed out in Hawaii, because I was like, oh, I'll never go to combat. Two, I'm gonna be stuck on these Muse, like I'm gonna be stuck on a boat, for 6-7 months at a time, not doing anything. I'm just like, my brother did a Mew, and he had two of them actually, but he did one that was an actual like float, and I was like, you'd be in some private boot, like just sitting on it. That was like my nightmare, to be honest with you. I was like, please don't. I don't want to be on a Mew. Everyone was like, oh, it's so much fun. You go to the Philippines. I was like, I didn't join to go to the Philippines and hang out, and I joined to go to Iraq and Afghanistan, not to sit on a boat for 6 months.
Just the action that occurs on a carrier, though, is an experience that everyone should see, whether it's on the Discovery Channel or what.
Yeah.
Just being there. I mean, it's it's the loudest environment you can really be in.
Yeah.
Besides inside a helicopter on a carrier.
Oh, just because everything's
it's so loud. Yeah. I mean, everyone who flies in helicopters or works on a carrier or anything, they definitely have, permanent ear damage.
Yeah.
And like right now, I'm like, I keep trying to stretch my back because it's like so much pain. And, I was in for 6 years, but you're carrying, 50 pounds of SAR gear, M240, M60s, like all the weaponry, and just working in this tight space. Like everyone's knees and backs are just completely jacked.
So you do the 6 years. What kind of draws you? Just like, hey, I'm out, I'm done. I did my fun adventure for now. And, was there anything that kind of drove you out, or just kind of like, I'm done?
I think I was good.
Yeah.
It was a fun job for my 20s. There's people that, they're lifers, and that's amazing. Lots of friends that stuck it out, and, now they're saluting their paycheck every month. And, when that day comes by, you're like, oh, maybe I should have. Yeah. But no, I was dating my now wife at the time. I did one deployment while we were dating. That was tough. And I don't know, I'm definitely a family guy. So it's a contrast, and it's hard to leave, and I've seen, so many relationships that don't make it through. So there was that, but also I think I'm wired in a way where I don't know, I have like these blocks in my life where, okay, I've done this, I've excelled at this, kind of topped out. Now I'm going to move on to this. The next thing was get educated. Worked at the Space and Naval Warfare, finished my undergrad, and then my wife and I moved up. We got married, and then we moved up to the Pacific Northwest and got our master's degrees. And I was working in high tech for a while, Expedia when it was part of Microsoft, Cisco Systems, and I had this like adventure gap. It was because we just had our daughter, maybe both kids. I have a daughter and a son. And there was this period of time where it's like you go from, operating in a helicopter, jumping out, doing cool stuff, to taking tests at school and, ones and zeros with the technology. It's all a new adventure, but there was definitely something missing, just who I was. So that's when I got into high altitude mountaineering.
Yeah, that's what most people do. They're like, let's take up high altitude training. I do that. I have like 10 friends that did that. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And it was the 90s, so that was the IT.
This was 2000s.
Oh, 2000s. Okay.
Yeah.
But when you got out though, that those 6 years, was that then into 2000s with like?
I got out in '99, and I think inactive reserve was 2000.
Okay. So that when then. That was kind of opposite of that. You're getting into IT or that technical side, those zeros and ones, and you said Pacific Northwest with Microsoft. That's like the boom era was. Windows 98, you have the dawn of the internet, but you have the internet, you have .coms, you have, things are really starting to kind of really come into their own.
And, it was fun. Yeah. And in fact, even when I was in the Navy, one of my side jobs was the secret material board. So like the secret messages come through every morning, and I would put together that board and, in a locked door and brief the pilots and everything else. So I was already starting to do like the technology thing, and then became the networking guy. There was a couple of us. We would put ourselves through all the certifications and everything. So I was kind of setting myself up for that. I was planning before I got out, because the last thing you want to do is get out and then like, oh crap, what do I do?
Well, infantry does that all the time. I was fortunate, but that's like 90% of my friends.
It's tough though, because then you'll end up going back in. A lot of people do because they didn't plan ahead, and you feel trapped. And that's not a place I ever want to be, or my kids to be, or anything. So that's something I really push for them. Always plan ahead, even if things will change. They're always going to change. Life happens. The economy, goes crazy, but at least you have a foundation to work on. Now you can pivot left or right.
No, I agree. So then you start getting into that. What jobs did you, like I said, because you're getting into high altitude training and doing the mountains and stuff like that. And we can kind of get in this when we start getting into your mountaineering, but that type of lifestyle, like I said, Cleveland climbing Everest, like the cost of that, the amount of time it takes. I mean, how would that work with like the family? I know in the book you wrote like, yeah, your wife's not real into it. You know, you took her like one trip or something. Yeah.
She's adventurous in her own way.
Yeah.
No, we couldn't be more opposite.
Yeah.
Which it's good because it helped really balance us from our relationship, because we respect how each other is wired. And I think that's so important. But our faith is strong too. So we don't put our hope in each other. We put it into Jesus. And when you have something outside of yourself that you're a common goal you're working towards, then you're not fighting so much, because now you're working towards that common goal. But yeah, having young kids, I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I have 4,000 foot peaks, 5,000 foot peaks in my backyard. So like 8-mile round trip, good training grounds. I'll throw 60, 70 pounds in a pack. Usually have water, so you can dump that on the top and save the knees on the way down. But just from a physical and cardio standpoint, I mean, that just gets you in the best shape that you can imagine.
Yeah. No, I meant in like what elevations are you training that at then? Because I mean, that's a massive factor that helps a lot.
Yeah, but so Everest and some of these other ones, you can't train for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even if you are climbing there at whatever.
Well, yeah, if you live near the death zone, you could.
Yeah. That would be the best. Yeah. Training Nepal is probably
like
the best. Yeah.
5,000 foot peaks is totally sufficient. Yep.
So, and then prepping for some of that, did you, I went down the Everest road for about a few months. I think I told you about that. There's some guys came up to me and they were like, we want to climb Everest and we want you to go with. I'm like, wow, thank you. And so then they're like, we want you to film it. I'm like, okay, like I'm not a mountaineering guy, and I know neither are you. And naturally it obviously all fell through. I was like, this isn't going to happen. But in case that it did, I went down that rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, how do it was, my wife's just like, are you serious? I'm like, well, they asked and I think I could do it. I think that's that mentality of like, all right, yeah, okay, let's give it a shot.
Movie.
Yeah, I saw the movie. Yeah, I was like, it's got to climb. But there was like, some guys was looking at filmmakers, but like, did you do like the oxygen tent, like, where you like, kind of getting yourself worked up to that? I see sometimes people doing that, or it's just
like the hyperbolic chamber.
Yeah, hyperbolic chamber. Even though like I saw one guy who was like, he's just working on his laptop, getting like his body acclimated to it. But I mean,
No, I don't take drugs or anything, because people, take, different things that can, like, to me, it just masks what's happening. And I think that's dangerous, because if you're having high altitude cerebral edema, your brain's about to explode, or pulmonary edema, your heart's about to explode because of the altitude, and I feel fine, because I'm taking drugs, that's probably not good. And it's miserable. Yeah. It's miserable at altitude. Like, you feel horrible. But you have to spend the time. You have to acclimate. And, my job in the military was, we worked alone. You jump from the helicopter, you're on your own. You have a crew that's maybe up in the helicopter, or definitely in the helicopter, but usually it's 1-to-1 or 1-to-many in the water. So I've always been very comfortable. And I think just being a loner, kind of growing up as well, just hanging out in the mountains and stuff by myself, I'm just comfortable. So I didn't have like on Everest, if we jump to that, I was independent. I didn't have a big team. I had some Sherpa support, down lower, but for the most part, I was on my own.
Yeah. I mean, that's the workup too. I mean, before that you had the Denali trip, which was, it sounded super intense. I mean, you were, when I was listening to your book, it was, you had the Everest, but we'll work our way up to what happened on Everest. But even before that, there was like one guy that was part of your group that disappeared on the Denali trip. I mean, and then also what was going from I'm going to try high altitude training and and do all this stuff as a hobby to I'm going to decide to climb the 7 peaks, correct? Or all 7 the highest peaks in the world, or on the continents, and then. What was the buildup for that? Like what was that journey? And, because I mean, that's amazing in itself. Like you went to Denali to climb that, Kilimanjaro. And then Kilimanjaro was like literally on my list. I was talking to some guys to go because I'd love to do it.
Nice, let's do it.
Yeah. And there was a buddy of mine did it this last year, and some vet groups go. So I was trying to see if I could attach to a vet group. If not, I'm like, I just, I want to do it.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
Yeah. And, but what kind of led you into that? I mean, you're doing the real deal stuff too. It's just like hiking, what gets you into that and gets you motivated?
Yeah, it's honestly, when I think I had Jordan, my second, actually my wife had Jordan.
Yeah.
I was just coaching, getting out of the way and doing ice chips. I went for a bike ride like not too long after that, and I was going up a hill, and I just stopped, and I was like dry heaving. And I was like, no, you can't go from as top fitness as you can get to now. I can't even ride a bike up, and I looked fit, but I was not fit. So I decided to start hiking and climbing. And it wasn't until I had a good friend who suggested the 7 summits. Not many people had done it, highest peaks on the 7 continents. So we just had a conversation. We worked together, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then I think that same weekend he wrecked on a motorcycle, broke his back, and like barely survived, had to be medevaced out. And so I was like, oh, guess I'm on my own. But I did come home, and the conversation with Joanna, my wife, she wasn't shocked.
Yeah.
She's just like, okay. She knows if I set my mind to something, like one, it's not irrational. It's like there's thought process behind it. Like if I feel a calling or, just something lacking, a lot of times we'll go our whole life searching for our purpose, and we may never find it, or you may find it along the way in the weirdest places that you would never suspect. You think you're going to do something for one reason, and then you realize later, like, no, this plan was already mapped out for me, and you walk it out. So that's kind of my journey. But yeah, I had that conversation, and she's just like, 7 summits, okay. Does that include Everest? I'm like, well, that is one of the highest peaks on one of the continents and the world. So it's like, but it'll be way down the road. So it ended up being number 4. But yeah, that first climb, the first one I did, I was training on Rainier and, all the Cascade peaks in my backyard in Washington. But 2009 went to Denali up in Alaska. 2-week expedition, got within 1,000 feet. And the person you were referencing, he wasn't with our group. We were pinned down at high camp at 16,000 feet for a week. It was so cold. We were just laying there. I could see my breath freezing. It's the first time I'd noticed something like that. Super cold. He comes through. He had ditched his team. He had skis on his back. There was like 60 mile an hour winds. That's why we were pinned down. And he, we tried to talk him out of it. He was just like summer fever or whatever. He's like, no, I'm going to go to the top and then I'll be back. And we're like, okay, we recommend you don't do that, but not much you can do. So the next morning we searched for him. We made our summit attempt, but got pushed back because of wind. So I could see the summit, 1,000 feet away, but we made a good choice. C-130s with IR were flying over looking for the body. They still haven't found him.
Really?
Yeah. So just got
it's like
launched.
16 years later. Or you think is lost or I don't say blown off the mountain? I mean, like I don't know what Denali looks like. Yeah.
He would have been blown off.
Yeah.
And it's half a mile to a mile of exposure. Like you're going to accelerate, and it's ice, and most likely break your neck, and it's really hard to get a rescue up there. But yeah, we looked, we didn't see him.
Yeah.
So anyways, made a good choice, got back. At that point, and this is kind of part of my story, is I could have scrapped this whole journey at this point. This is a major goal. There's a lot of cost, time. There's just a lot associated with climbing the highest peaks on the 7 continents. But I didn't. I got back, and it's a bummer because people are following me at this point. But I had to continue on, and just best thing is get back out climbing and plug in the next one. Okay, I'm going to do Kilimanjaro in February. So now it was on the map, and I was working towards that.
How long from you talking to your wife to it was Denali the first? Or okay, what was the time frame? Like, was there a workup, or was this like I'm going to do this next year type of mentality?
No, it was over a year.
Over a year.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm gonna do this, and your wife's like, okay.
Yeah.
And then you execute on
There's a
Denali.
lot to plan
Yeah.
because it's time off because I'm working full time,
Yeah.
getting the support of the companies that I'm working for financially. It can be expensive, all the gear, the flights, permits. So I was getting sponsors, go and beg for money and make it unique. Like, no, this would be so cool for your company. And they're like, no.
Yep. Still that way.
Yeah. It makes the most sense.
Yeah,
No, we already gave our money to something dumber. Okay.
Yeah,
Keep doing that.
Yeah. And this was the 2009. I know you were saying that you were writing a blog and stuff like that. So, like I said, you could kind of have a following. I mean, this was early social media per se. I mean, Facebook had been around for a few years, and I don't know if Instagram was out by that point. But did you start working on that angle, or is it more just like, hey, what was your pitch to the sponsors to be like, hey, give me some money to go climb 7 peaks?
It was light. I mean, it was, social media wise, it was light until it wasn't. And it was around that time after I had a couple more successes. It is tough. You research, you find, a contact page or whatever, and it's a black hole, who's even looking at that stuff. In the end, it comes down to who you know. So I worked for Cisco Systems, and I was actually showcasing their technology on the climbs because I visited orphanages on all the climbs that I did. So I was coordinating like orphanages to like do a video to talk to other orphanages, and so it was cool. It was like purpose beyond this this selfish climbing that I didn't know why I was doing. Just knew I needed to do this. But yeah, it's tough. And then it's like, I represent pretty well. Like if you sponsor me, I'll bring your flag to the top, or I'll have it logoed all over me. I'll go out and give talks. And that's what they had me doing. Like, flying around the US giving talks about Everest and, whatever grand strategic plan that these companies had, and just motivation, all that stuff. But yeah, so there's a lot of work involved with it, and I'm more comfortable on a mountain than right here in front of a podcast.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Well, so then training leading up to that first Denali, what kind of training do you do? Like in general, like, you're hiking a ton? Are you researching a lot? Like, I'm not saying myself would, but like you obviously have an immense amount of training before this, being a rescue swimmer and all this other stuff. But were you in good shape going in? Did you become better? Like you're saying, you get acclimated at those elevations. Doesn't say it doesn't matter, but like, so say myself, Minnesota, if I were like, I'm going to try to do this, what would lead, what kind of training led you to that Denali? You're at 5,000 feet, we're probably at like 1,500 here or something like that. I can't remember one, but like, what would you do to then get to that point where you're like, yeah, I feel good climbing Denali, or is there just a routine like, hey, we just got to spend time at altitude to accomplish this,
To acclimate, you do.
Yeah.
That's just in itself. So it's a game of patience. You climb high, you come back down, sleep low. That forces your body into oxygen deprived areas, which produce more red blood cells, which carry oxygen, so you can survive. But it's just cat and mouse type of thing. So it's a lot of patience, a lot of up, down. You end up climbing all these mountains multiple times before you're done, just before you can even attempt to get to the top. But the highest peak I have in Washington is Mount Rainier. So, 14,500 feet. So working on that, did some professional training up there. So dug in for a week with a major group and just learning, all the self-arrest, crevasse rescue, glacier travel, all the rope work, how to pack a bag properly, not like we did in the military.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But yeah, it's a lot of work. And so there's the technical side, and then there's just the physical, just climbing. I'd wake up at, 4 a.m, hit one of the peaks, be back before the kids woke up and went to school, and, 2 Starbucks in hand. And so doing that like a lot, but also trying to find that time to rest as well. It's easy, when we're younger and you just keep hammering and hammering, you gotta rest. Like we're called to rest, and it's amazing how your body will replenish And you can't summit these higher mountains unless you rest. Resting for me is the worst because that's when those boxes that we've compartmentalized will open up when you have downtime and you're just bored and you just get in your own head. So that's why the mental aspect of climbing and anything we do in life, but it's just so critical.
And so the Denali trip, doing that, finally starting that, knocking that out, and then that guy goes up, doesn't come back. You guys don't you get to 1,000 feet, then you're like, okay, like gonna go back down. Kilimanjaro is your next one. How's that one? How is that compared to like, is there one that like, obviously Everest is everybody looks to, but I've heard, like, hey, K2 is way more technical. There's like other, was Denali with those 70-mile-an-hour winds, you guys were hunkered down. Like, is there certain peaks that are like, yeah, this is higher, but this one was much, the conditions were way worse than here, like kind of that relativity thing. Is there anything that you kind of ran into?
Conditions on Denali seem to always be worse. I had 100-mile-an-hour winds in Aconcagua, which I soloed as well, in Argentina, highest peak in South America. So they're all so unique that it's hard to compare. It's definitely not apples to apples. The thing with Denali and Vincent Massif in Antarctica is because they're so high and low in the hemispheres, that you can tack on like 2,000 to 3,000 extra feet because of the barometric pressure. So you may be at 20,000 feet, but it feels like 23.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So but Kilimanjaro was awesome. I had my buddy that I mentioned that always fell in the creek. It's my best friend. Yeah. I won't mention his name, Joe Sutherland. He's in all my books too. He's got to love that. I called him up. I'm like, hey, you want to do Kili? He's like, sure. And another buddy from high school. So we all met there and we climbed it together. So that was fun. I pulled out like the acclimatization days. Like usually it takes like a week or whatever. And I shortened it, just trying to go a little quicker.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've heard with Kili. I literally just texted my buddy and his brother and their sister. They all went, and I was like, hey, you did, this like last October. I had an opportunity that fell through, but we were going to climb Kili and I was going to film it, but they were also going to like pay me to go. It was a vet group. Cool. That kind of is still in the, teetering, but looks like it's falling through. But I've always wanted to do it since I was like in high school. I saw a documentary on Kilimanjaro. So it's just like one of those peaks where I'm like, I'm not a climber, but I'm like, one, I love mountains. Two, that's like just on my bucket list of like climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Yeah, just since I was a kid.
And it's a trek.
Yeah, it's a trek. Yeah, I've watched a ton of stuff, and like, yeah, I can do that. Most people do, I should say do. It's still
19,000 feet. You'll feel it.
You'll feel it, exactly. But, I don't have like the nerves or something like, oh, we're going to Everest or something, it's just different. But, so then you Kili, sounds fun.
It was.
And so you did 4. Everest was the 4th attempt or the?
Yeah, it's the 4th.
Fourth one.
So the third was Elbrus, which is the highest peak in Europe. It's super. This is definitely the most dangerous from a non-technical because it's in the Caucasus Range in Russia. So you have to fly into Mineral Vodi. So we spent some time. So my wife came and my friend and his wife, and we were gonna, climb it together. My wife's scared of heights, but she still went up to base camp at like 13,000. So it was awesome. But we spent some time in St. Petersburg, then took a train to Moscow, and then from there took Aeroflot plane to. No joking. It's crazy. It was like linoleum on the siding of this plane. And I don't know if they're saving on bolts. As soon as we took off, all of our seats lifted back. They were only bolted on the back. So we're lifting off the ground. It was like, oh my gosh, we're going to die in this flight, instead of before we even get to the mountain. But you land in Mineral Vodi and then you drive forever and get up in the Caucasus Range. It's right on the Georgia border. So very corrupt. To get to base camp, you take a ski lift up in the summer, so it's all over rocks. But the 2 ski lifts are competition, and they've actually blown the other one up, their competition, and like killed people on them.
Wow.
It's nuts. We get from one section, and you have to jump on another to go to the next section. You get off, shake some guy's hand with some rubles, pay him off. He's standing there with his gun. Some kid, like you couldn't just grab it and just smack him in the head with it, but
Just pay him.
just pay him instead. Yeah. We're just trying to climb a mountain. And then you get up there and then it's 18,500 feet.
Mm-hmm. You said that was pretty technical, or like
it's kind of like Rainier, which is, has its a couple different sections, but for the most part, we didn't even rope up. Like it's one of those, like if you fall in a crevasse, you deserved it type of thing. Like there's a pretty obvious path.
It's obvious. That's awesome. So then is there a reason why then that Everest was 4, opposed to like, oh, we're gonna wait till 7, or is it just worked out that way?
I'd planned to like kind of end with that, but my ending was actually better. Opportunistic. Mm-hmm. So to do some of the mountains like Antarctica, Everest, some of them like to get the permits and like Sherpa support and different aspects of it can be difficult. So I knew a guide who went to my church, and we were talking, and he was putting together a trek, and he always wanted to attempt to climb it as well. Mm-hmm. He's been doing this his whole life, so like, okay, so the timing just worked.
Mm-hmm. And then so decided to pull the trigger on that. What's the prep like going up, being like, hey, like this is the real deal?
Yeah,
it sounds amazing that you're doing, like, you got that mountain that you're going up, every morning or
yeah.
I mean, that's got to help. Obviously huge, not doing flatland training or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how people do that, but they do. You have people coming from all over the place that still are successful. I don't know. That nature therapy, though, is so important, and it helps with the mental aspect, spiritual, emotional, all of it, just because you're in your head and just kind of cruising up and down at night, with a headlamp, just one step in front of the other. My training was already, it was a part of life. So you train for the things that are within your control, and then you have to react to the things outside of your control. Things that are within your control are your physical fitness, your training, your technical ability. So all those things, I trained really hard. I was carrying, 70 plus pounds in a pack. I was super strong, cardio, cross training, doing all the technical side of it. My thing with any of these mountains is if I can't guide on it, then I have to be a leader. I can't be a follower, because stuff happens quickly. Mm-hmm. People can die, people get injured, things outside of their control. And then if I'm out there by myself, then, what am I going to do? Pop a flare? Mm-hmm. No one can fly a helicopter up on Everest. So, I was training hard, but at the same time, the balance of then basically one of the reasons I got out of the military, I didn't want to deploy anymore. Well, now I'm deploying, I'm leaving for 2 months, and that was really tough, especially being young kids, being a dad and husband, everything else. So just planning for that. And I think in my book, I mentioned, I always did a scavenger hunt. Mm-hmm. So I would hide stuff for every day. And I had my buddy, Joe, he would text a clue. I put the spreadsheet together, and then the kids and my wife would all run and find something. It might be a note, might be a toy or DVD or something. Mm-hmm. So kind of putting all that together and just planning for that time away.
Mm-hmm. Does that feel, I feel that same way. Is it almost, you think almost more about your family than you do your trip? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's how are they going to do, that's why when I'm gone too, it's I don't worry about me. I'm more worried about you. You got to deal with, raising the kids for,
it's hard.
You have two, it's
if you've ever been on the opposite end of it, it's so much harder being home, because your normal life is disrupted. Mm-hmm. My wife is a rock star for, being able to do this and allowing me to do, what I did. Mm-hmm. And it's tough because I'm out here trying to find this purpose, and I'm missing that time with my kids. But now it's everything in the past is a blur. It's a quick cache of memory. Mm-hmm. And if we allow those things to creep into our head that will stop us from being who we are, then one, we never accomplish anything. We don't push ourselves. We never really grow. We never find our purpose. But others are watching as well. Our kids, they're learning from us. Wow, Dad really pushed himself. I may not have understood it at the time, and it was tough, but now it seems like a blur, and his whole life has been impacted for the better because of it. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard when you're walking through it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, when we're on that end of it, you're active, you're operating, you're doing what you're trained to do. And they're at home, just waiting. So I was doing everything I could to, not make them just, miserable and waiting.
Yeah. Easy. It's like almost easy, keeping them occupied, like you said, thinking about them more. Yeah. And so you're prepping to go Everest Base Camp, and this is kind of funny because I researched so I could kind of relate a little bit. And Everest Base Camp is something, again, another thing I've seen people do. Travel is becoming more common now. We just go to base camp and take photos, and people, they do the trail up. Yeah. And it looks amazing. I think Nepal, I've always wanted to go. And then I found out about Everest Base Camp where you can go. And so that's another bucket list one. And wife's not too hot on it, but I'm like, I think it'd be amazing. Like the views, just going to Everest Base Camp would be phenomenal.
Which would be fine if I guided you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, base camp. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd be on board. I feel actually pretty cool about it. Yeah, because that's like people are doing that. What you were doing, it's like, oh, we go here and then we come back.
Most people do.
Yeah. Especially if the time. Some people are like, oh, we're just gonna tough it through. It's like, no, man, I'm getting a little older. I'll take my time. But yeah, absolutely. I would love to do Everest Base Camp. And she might, maybe, I don't know. But like it's you're starting your journey. I mean, that's got one of the excitement. What was the moment even before you're like, hey, I'm leaving to go do this? What was the moment you're like, hey, we got the permits? Like, how did that feel? Like, oh, this is real. Yeah. What was that like? Like,
it's almost like you want to self-sabotage, because the hardest thing is the lead up to leaving. Mm-hmm. That's like the most emotional and hardest, and just will really work on relationships, communication, everything, because tensions are high. Mm-hmm. It's like there's a lot that's going on, and like I'm the breadwinner and the paying the bills, and there's so many things that I did, so I had to like automate all this stuff. And it's like, if it's something outside of my control that doesn't allow me to do it, then maybe I have an excuse not to do it, and I can live with that or be disappointed about it, and I don't have to blame myself. It's a weird way of thinking.
Yeah.
I think in sports and different things, if you get injured or something, oh gosh, okay, that was causing so much stress, everything else, and now sorry, I'm injured. But yeah, once it was real, and it was just a blend of excitement and fear of, am I ready for this? I've always do all my research, everything else, but everything always looks different once your feet on the ground.
How did it feel then getting into flying in? I know that plane comes in, that's like the shortest runway in the world or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
how
was that coming in? You're like, because every step, you get the permit is real, train up. And then it's like on the flight, but then it's like that. I imagine that plane hitting, you're just like, here we go, 2 months, like even in your book, like again, we'll get into it now, but even when you're like, yeah, man, at the end of the day, no spoiler alerts, but at the end of the day, it was like, 3 minutes at the top, or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, but, but the lead up to that, the journey to get you there. So yeah, what was that like getting in that journey, I can't remember what's the airport or the Lukla, then to base camp to like rock and roll.
Yeah, it's amazing because you go out of Kathmandu, which is just like smoggy and like the poorest country in the world, and just honking horns and just monkeys running around, and you're almost getting hit by cars because the cars have the right of way. And next thing, we're on this airplane, and the pilot is not even watching. We're going through the Himalayas, and you look up. I think I got a picture of him. He's got a newspaper. He's reading. We got cotton balls in our ears because it's so loud, and that's just, they gave us like a hard candy, and then next thing you see this. We're not landing there, are we? This tiny little Band-Aid looking strip. Just hit it right on the side of the mountain, and we survive that. And you get out, and you're like, you look around, you're like, whoa, we're here. but it's still 38 miles on foot from there just to get to base camp. So it's nice and slow and acclimating every day and immersed with the Sherpa, just amazing individuals. So
that's awesome. That's cool. And your Sherpa too. I mean, these guys are, I mean, hearing a lot about them or reading about them, and they're, you know, those guys, it's funny because everyone goes, they're like, yeah, we're going to Everest. Some of these guys were like, yeah, I summited like 7 times, you know, or they're like, yeah, all right, let's go, you know, but they're amazing at what they can do at that altitude. I mean, the amount of weight, obviously they're from the region. They're, you know, this is what they do.
They're pre-acclimated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's wild. You know, they're carrying insane amount of equipment, you know, going up. And so, you know, at what point going up, because it looks insanely gorgeous, insanely beautiful area, was there like spots that you were like, man, this is like your favorite spot going up? You know, obviously you're going to Everest, but like that trail that takes you to base camp, is there like a fun favorite spot, kind of enjoying your time going, but
you gotta enjoy every moment.
Yeah.
Even if it's not that enjoyable. And most days I got so far ahead of, like, because I had a group that was going into only base camp, and then another was going to come out and climb Island Peak, a 20,000 foot peak. And then they were heading out. It was just me and my other guy that we're going to actually make an attempt. But yeah, so the further you get in, the worse it gets. It just, you get to these villages and there's just, you know, crap everywhere, people getting sick and everything else. So down lower, it looks not amazing, you know, like from facilities, and you realize actually that you can't wait to get back to those after you get further up. But yeah, there's places like Namche Bazaar is like the biggest town up there, village. But you're on these high ridges and you're just looking down, and, you know, the village is way down there, and it's just amazing being on these ridges. And then you look up and it's the highest peaks in the world just surrounding you. The suspension bridges are pretty amazing, going across these like tiny little bridges, you know, just wire to get, hundreds of feet, you know, below you. And so, yeah, the area where there's a graveyard, you know, it's a memorial. That's probably the most memorable, because you see all, like, you know, a lot of memorials out there, names I know. And this was their dream. So it's just that reality check of, okay, this is not a place I want to be in this memorial, you know, but yeah.
Yeah. That's like us in deployments. You don't want to have your name on a fob, you know, you don't want to be named after, or fob named after you. You know, it was like our thing too. Yeah. So you're moving your way up, you get to base camp, you know, I fired it off. Like, you know, you're going up the south side, opposed to is it the north or west side, or
north out of Tibet, south out of Nepal?
Yeah. I was looking at, and is the south side more? I mean, that's what I've seen. You're going through the
Khumbu icefall.
Yeah, the Khumbu icefall and all that stuff. Is that more common than the north side then?
It is, because permitting is easier in Nepal than Tibet. If you reverse that, more people would probably go through Tibet because you can drive to base camp. So
oh, okay. Oh, wow. Oh, that would be.
It's still, once it's legit. I mean, even driving there, you got to acclimate as you're heading in, but
at least there's a road.
From there though, it's still legit, but you don't go through the ice fall either, which is amazing, but it's, you know, arguably the most dangerous area of the mountain. So.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I've seen documentaries on it. Making your way through the icefall, you said that was kind of like the most dangerous aspect of, and then what's the reason why? Why is it because it's shifting, or?
Yeah, it's always shifting. So it's a couple miles of just seracs, so building-sized blocks of ice that are always shifting and falling. And you, like I mentioned earlier, to acclimate, you have to climb high, sleep low. So I went through that like 8 times, climbed through the night, you know, maybe like 3-4 in the morning, because once the sun comes up, things become very unstable. It's also where you see the aluminum ladders all tied together, going across crevasses. And every time I went through, it looked different. Avalanches would kick off later in the day, shift everything. So there's 5 Sherpa employed called icefall doctors, and that's all they do. Every day they'll just, if it's safe, go through and reroute. And they're fixing lines, so ropes attached to ice screws or pickets, you know, different anchor devices, so that I, as a climber, I'm not attached to another person. I'm not roped up with another person. I'm actually attached to the mountain, where there's fixed lines, like going across the ladders and stuff. So there's safety lines. If you fall, hopefully you just fall to the next anchor and don't rip that out. But that's the logic anyways.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. And I mean, that's crazy that you did that like 8 times. Cause every time I watch a documentary, they're like, yeah, then we just made it through there. And I was like, oh, that's only like a day or, but you're actually,
well, it's also, you do it multiple
times.
19,000 feet too.
Yeah.
So you're at altitude.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just run through that thing.
Yeah.
Every step takes 5 seconds.
Yeah. And and then going through your head, I mean, you're kicking this off, you're going through Khumbu Icefall, even before that Everest Base Camp. We can kind of talk about, the dangers in itself. I mean, you said the Everest film that we were talking about while we were having lunch here before this, but like the Everest incident where it was like 14 climbers were killed, or Americans and stuff like that. Like, what's that like within the culture of climbing? I mean, like, especially for Everest, like how dangerous it can be, and even one of the guys that was part of that was there that year. I think going up or something like that. Like when
he was with North Face. His first time back. He was actually skiing down. I got some video of him.
Oh, okay. And so he was going back up to the summit. Yeah. And so, what's that like in your guys' head? I mean, you guys talking about that? Is that always on your mind, or is it just something that's like, yeah, it happened?
We didn't have fire escapes until a building burned and killed everyone inside. It's like, we always have to learn the hard way. In 96, when that, it was like the perfect storm for one. It was like horrible conditions, but it was one of the first guided expeditions, and things went wrong and people died. So they've learned so much since then. So there's a lot of safety. I mean, it's night and day from when it was then. So it's not something that, it is weird though, like military too. You talk about some morbid things and it brings peace for some reason, but I don't remember really talking too much about it, but it's, it's always there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to like be in those same areas to see those same places where those events occurred.
And what was I shouldn't go into so many details, but what was the details of that one that caused that? Was that just not, I shouldn't say misguiding, but like people pushing too far where they shouldn't have, or, it was a perfect storm. It just kind of like, and
it was all of the above.
Yeah.
I mean, some people were pushing it beyond what they should have, got pinned down because the weather came in. It was just like, sometimes these weather patterns and the predictions have gotten so much better, because you can only summit Everest on, a couple of weeks throughout each year, because it's at 29,035 feet. It's in the jet stream. So right before monsoon season hits in the spring, there'll be like a lull and there'll be like an opening. So you're acclimating for, over a month to get in a position to have like a 5-day weather window to get up there. When they had done it in 96, there's a lot of lessons learned. There's people pushing it. Weather came in unpredictably, pinned people down, couldn't get out. One of the guides stayed with the client. It's pretty heroic. Could have saved himself, but they both ended up dying. So yeah, there's just a lot of factors.
Yeah. And I imagine, like I said, this is years later, so a lot of lessons learned. And this is before the traffic jams, that we see now on like social media with Everest. Did you see any of that there, or is that just more of a common thing in the last few years?
Well, in my scenario, like you mentioned,
or your scenario, but like that, was that kind of a thing even in that year that you were there?
So there's only one way up, one way down, and there's not that many people that try to climb to the summit, and there's only a couple days where you can go to the summit. So if you have all those factors involved, you're going to have traffic jams. You're going to have some that are faster, some that are, and you can clip around them and whatever. I didn't have that experience, but mine was super unique.
Yeah, obviously.
So I think years later I saw like those pictures and I was like, glad I didn't have that. But a lot of those, they're not actually climbing the summit. They're climbing their Sherpa that are bringing like supplies or whatever up too. So, but yeah, that would be unfortunate. There was one incident down lower on Lhotse Face where there was an Indian team, and I had to check to make sure they were alive because they just weren't moving. And you're on a, straight up ice wall. And I clipped around them and just kept moving. And they were alive. They were just like super slow.
Super slow. Really taking their time.
I was getting cold.
Yeah.
I'm going to go around you.
Yeah. That's awesome. So then you make it through the Khumbu Icefall. I mean, what do you guys climb it? I mean, like, does that, I should say, get easier after that? But like, is it, I've seen some docs on that. So you make it past that first that ice fall. Are you then? Isn't there like I don't say walking trail, but like walking to the next base camp?
To advanced base camp. Yeah. So from Camp 1, which is at the top of the Khumbu Icefall, is the Western Khum. Khum is CWM, means valley. That is pretty much what it says. It's a valley. You have these high peaks on each side. There's one major crevasse in the middle. It has 5 ladders tied together. That was a legit. You step on that ladder, that thing drops like 3 feet, swings back and forth. When we were there, 2 climbers who had fallen in that same crevasse, you can't even see the bottom when you're going across it. It's super deep. They churned up miles away down in base camp. Like their bodies were finally recovered.
Holy
it was like
shit.
2 decades later. So that's
really?
Yeah.
So that's just, even with the safety rope, or do you even do it?
I don't know if they had safety.
Okay.
I know there's a couple years ago, a Sherpa ran across, an avalanche kicked off, and it blew him off. He didn't have a safety rope.
Jesus. So that's just like.
Yeah. How glaciers work, they're always churning, right? They're creating the landscape beneath us. So
that's wild. So basically you walk that, but that's still a pretty big crevasse that you got to cross over. You're making your way up. What's the like I said, the challenge then getting to camp 2, 3, and I mean, you're always going back, you got to climb up, come back down. How long is that process then taking now? Like as you're working your way to the summit?
Depends. And as you're acclimating, you're going faster. The problem is you don't want to get cocky and go too fast, because if you're sweating, weather comes and goes like snap of a fingers. If you're sweating and you stop, you can go hypothermic, because next thing, it can be 50 below. In another minute, it could be 80 degrees. So you have I have a full down suit, like my harness, like all my gear, no oxygen at this point. You don't start using supplemental until camp 3. But yeah, you always have to be like aware of just how your body's doing, and your body versus mine would be different. Everyone's different. So
do you ever feel like overconfident when you're doing something? Like, do you ever feel that you're like, I got this, at any point?
I hope not. You'll be humbled real quick.
Yeah. I was gonna say, they'll be like, I don't need this. I'll ditch my shirt, or whatever. But well,
there are times when it'll be just too hot, and I'd wrap it, take off the top, just like tie a knot, because it's a full body suit, down suit. But then a second later, it's freezing, and I have my backpack, so it's a lot of gear to go through. So I also have zippers all the way up and down, so I can like ventilate. But if I feel myself getting like warmer and warmer, it's like, okay, just slow down or just take a break, step off the side and get some water.
So like I said, just low and slow all the way up.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm the type, I like to get stuff done.
So then, was there, I should say anybody, but was there guys that were like, we're good. We'll just fly right up this thing. But, did you run anybody or was everybody pretty much humbled by that point? I was gonna say by that point, I'm sure everyone's probably in that
even
same
Sherpa or human at that level.
Yeah. Even though they're like very good at it.
They're pre-acclimated, super strong, very wise. But when you get up higher, we're all human.
Yeah. And then, so you're, how is that feeling? Like you're sleeping at night, you're, again, watch some of the documentaries, your oxygen levels are obviously dropping. Sleep isn't very good. Like, how do you feel like in generalities? Like you just like exhausted all the time for the next 2 weeks, especially at the elevation, or what's
You have some pretty gnarly dreams.
Yeah.
Some pretty vivid dreams from like my childhood and stuff. So that was kind of fun. It's like a time travel. You sleep a lot. There's a lot of time when you're resting. So I don't know. I slept good. I do okay.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, you hear people talk about like, they're just exhausted every step takes, especially as you get higher.
Yeah.
every step is just like.
And then once you're there, you're there. So
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you just kind of hang out.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
okay, I'm good.
Yeah, is there a point where you just sit down and you're like, all right, I'm good, I'm okay. You know, or, you know, it's like, it's hard to breathe, but you're kind of like, all right, I'll be all right. Like,
The air is there. Your body is just, it's thinner and thinner.
yeah.
So your body's just not getting enough. So your muscles are just like, come on, dude. What's up?
What's going on? What are we doing here? So then, you know, I guess we could start, you know, your journey up. And so we can start getting into it. You guys, at what point, and then you and your Sherpa are like, hey, we're going to attempt the summit. Like, you guys had a good opening, you know, you're making your way up, and this is all that same day that like your glasses crack, yeah, all that stuff. So that morning, I can imagine it's morning that you're going to attempt the summit.
So
we can start, you know.
Even before then, so it took a month, up and down, and then we waited for a 5-day weather window. So then,
And you're hanging out at Camp 3?
base camp.
Oh, base camp, okay.
Yeah, Camp 3 is the highest you go before you bring it all the way down.
Okay.
So that's at 23,000 feet. That's halfway up Lhotse face. Lhotse is the 4th highest mountain in the world. You actually climb straight up an ice wall for miles. And that's where you see the tents that are anchored on the side of the cliff. So yeah, if you fall, it's definitely game over. People have fallen. But yeah, on May, we'll just fast track because I'm now acclimated.
Yeah.
Pasong's Sherpa, we're heading up. We're at Camp 3, sleeping there, and it's May 14th, 2011.
And you're sleeping with oxygen, correct?
At Camp 3.
Camp 3, yeah.
Yep. So it's like 15 pounds of, the tanks, and it's supplemental, mixes with the outside air. And I don't know if we were actually, I don't think we slept with it there. Up higher we did. Maybe, I don't know. You read my book, more recent.
Yeah, I was listening to it. Yeah. Trying to get all my facts right. There's so much stuff going on.
14 years ago. But we took off in the next morning, and we were hit by 70-mile-an-hour winds. So it's just whipping off the top. And a couple people did summit that night. One famous Japanese climber died at the south summit, but everyone else retreated. It was just very dangerous. So we're heading up, and about 1,000 feet from above Camp 3 is when I stopped to get water. And I have a system. I have my oxygen, my mask, my goggles. I had to take my goggles off, wrapped them around my wrist, and I'm on the side of a ice wall. My foot slipped out, and that's when my goggles slid off my hand and my wrist and hand and just went down. I thought they were gone. And typically you don't bring extra goggles. You only carry what you can carry. So I didn't have an extra pair. I had sunglasses, but doesn't work well with an oxygen mask. Fortunately, or miracle, some Sherpa down below, about 500 feet below, stopped the goggles. They could have went far to the other side and they would have been gone. And they're waving at me, and I'm like looking straight down, waving at them. So I come off all my oxygen, leave my pack, anchor it. I rappel down and get to my goggles, and that's when I noticed they're cracked. So goggles have two lenses, internal and external lens. The internal had a crack right through it. So they were freezing between layers. Ended up ripping that internal lens out, not realizing that probably cut their effectiveness in half. So continued up. Pasong had already continued. He went up to the South Col, which is the highest camp in the world. Later that afternoon, I showed up, got there, and just told him what had happened. So we laid in our tent at 26,000 feet, which is the death zone. That's where there's only a third of the air, third of the ozone, and contemplated our life.
And so, sorry, what elevation is that? That was
26,000.
26,000. And you're in the death zone sleeping, or you're getting ready to summit, like you're finding that window.
Yep.
How long do you have in that death zone? Or is that just kind of like, I'd say unmeasurable, but you, like I said, you get to the peak, you only have so much time, but like in the death zone, what typically, or is it just whatever?
You're slowly dying.
Slowly dying in general.
If you cut your finger, it won't heal. There's not enough air to survive. So I don't know. I don't know how long.
No one's tried it.
Don't stay long.
Yeah.
There's been people that have been up there a few days, and that's got to take its toll. But yeah, we laid it down in the tent, made radio calls. They triangulated down to Seattle and like Sweden, I think. Said there'd be 50-mile-an-hour gusts the following day, but throughout the night it would be calm. This is typical Everest. Calm through the night, which is when you're climbing. Get to the top, get back down before the winds really pick up. So we looked at our tent, totally calm. So it's amazing. It's just like,
I was gonna say, what's that feel like, or what does it look like and feel like? You're just like,
yeah, it's a little eerie.
Yeah.
You're up there and you're at this highest camp, and there's really no one else around. Everyone else either retreated down, they had attempted that night, and then they're heading back down. And then there's people at camp 2 and in camp 3 getting in a position to try to summit the following few days. So we were right on the front end of what could have been, a good weather window. So, but yeah, laying there, go back in the tent, you try to rest and your eyes are just wide open, blink, because you're thinking, I'm going to go for the summit of Everest tonight. Like, yeah, it's nuts.
So when you lay down to when you get up and go, how many, is that like a few hours? Yeah.
Yeah, because you got to get all your gear together. So you're prepping all your gear, oxygen, extra bottles, get your crampons on, just, everything. You always want to know where everything is, because you don't want to have to think, where's a granola bar? Where's extra water? Where's extra batteries if my headlamp goes out? So it's like knowing just all that stuff. It's kind of like military, right?
Yeah, just getting prepped out for, easy grab or whatever and whatnot. What's that feeling like? I mean, is it just kind of like, all right, we're here, let's do it? Or is there kind of like again, every step of the way, I'm sure it's like, oh no shit, here we are. But you still have like, all right, we got a job to do.
Yeah.
Is that just kind of like you're sitting there like, okay, we're going to do this tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
It's all foreign territory. Not for Pasong. He'd summited a few times already in his life and since. But for me, I hadn't been there. It'd be the first time, but I knew what I needed to do. I was nervous, excited. But yeah, just like anything, we can run from obstacles or we can attack them. And the best way to attack is to break them into attainable chunks. And that's what I was doing.
All right. Movement up to the peak. How'd that go?
Good. Yeah, right away, I wasn't feeling good. So I communicated that to Pasong, and we stopped, and I got some water and a snack, and that's all I needed, because I had like a headache. And I rallied at that point, and I just started inching away. And this is all at night. It's headlamp, just one step in front of the other. Slowly. It's like 5 seconds between each step. It's nuts. Just not enough air. But I eventually got to the balcony at 27,500 feet, and looking around, Pasong, like I could barely even see his headlamp. So I waited there for about an hour, and that was pretty amazing in itself, because I'm the only person at this altitude. There's no one going for the summit from either side besides us. Very rare, like extremely rare. And now I'm up here by myself, and there's a lightning storm way in the distance. And I took my little video camera. I was trying to take video of it. It was a surreal moment, just peaceful, a breeze going by, super cold when you stop moving. But the lightning storm was like so far below me, because I'm
so high,
way up there. But yeah, and then Pasong finally rolls in, and he's like, I don't feel good. And so, it's conversation number one. He's like, okay, do we need to go down? He's like, no, I just ran out of water. So I gave him an extra water. He threw up. It's like, keep it. And I'm like, seriously, can you go on? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. So, just like military, just like anything, you live and die by the decisions we make, but you make the decisions based on the information you have at that time, usually within a 3-foot reach. We continued up, and not too far, about 28,000 feet, that's when he tapped out. He's like, I'm going to go back to the balcony and wait. And at that point, I had to really make a decision. So I don't know if you've been in these situations where it's like, okay, am I going to go, or am I going to go down? So, you weigh everything out. How was I feeling? I felt strong. Weather was good. Most importantly, how was Pasong? He assured me he was good, said he was going to wait, right there at the balcony. He ended up going all the way down to high camp, which is fine. It's all survival. And he left an extra oxygen bottle, and he turned away and I turned the other way, and we just went, started moving.
What was that journey like then? Being like, you're soloing. What did it even cross your mind? You're just like, okay, just move forward, get to the top.
Yeah, it's, if you overthink anything, you get in your head. I'm very comfortable soloing. I've soloed a lot of things, like most things in my life I've done by myself. So like from that point of view, it wasn't much, but I mean, this was Everest. So it was interesting. It was like kind of exploratory. There's fixed lines. There's like a dreadlock of lines from past years. You don't want to get into the brittle rope and snap and fall for a couple miles. So there's just a lot of focus and just slow moving and just making my way up. The South Rock Step is just this rock climb at 28,000 feet. So it's more effort than it needs to be. Trying to pierce, get your cramp on a spike into a groove or a crack, and then kind of hoist yourself up with the Ascender or Jumar device that's attached to my harness, and just slow, and everything just takes time and effort. You're just wasted, and just keep moving. But yeah, and then eventually I look out to my left, and that's when I took my last video because my video camera froze, but the sun rising from the highest point, behind the highest point in the world, cast that perfect pyramid shadow down over the Himalayas, and got that video, and it's amazing. Like I can always watch that and just go back to that place. But the sun it's hope, it's motivation. So when we're climbing and you're going through the night, it's one foot in front of the other. It's a headlamp. You have no indication of time. Once that sun comes up, you should be close to the summit. And I was. Continued up, got to the south summit, which is humiliating because you're still an hour away. You drop down. This is that area called the Cornice Traverse. So it's about 2 feet wide, and it is a literal 2-mile drop on each side of you. Left into Nepal, right into Tibet. So just slowly get across. People have fallen, and I'm not sure an anchor would actually hold. Got across that, and then Hillary Step, a 40-foot rock climb. And this is, like you mentioned earlier, this was a point of contention because one way up, one way down. And in some cases, not even 2 lines. Like sometimes you have a line going up and a line coming down. But if you're waiting, like that's a tough area to wait. There's no one there. So I just scrambled up that, it was just bouldering at that point with crampons. And then at the top of that, still cornice, like this traverse all the way to the top. So you don't want to get too far for me on my right. Pop through that. Cornice is overhanging ice from wind. It's wind-swept snow and ice, which will break loose. But seeing the summit, like that last, however long that took, it's incredible. It's hard. I mean, I'm still processing it 14 years later. It's amazing.
And then getting to that, like I said, getting to the summit, and you're taking the selfie, and calling it down.
Selfie in the world, and I'm all choked up, and it's too hard to cry. It hurts your head. So made that radio call down, and so this is Brian checking in from the summit of Everest.
That's awesome.
And just all the camps come to life. Just congratulations. And that's when the guy that I had been climbing with, the guy from my church, he came on. He's like, "Oh my gosh, congratulations." He's like, "You and Pasong, be sure to, give me a call once you get down past the South Summit." And that's at that moment I realized no one knew I was alone. So I'm like, "That's cool." But Pasong went down like an hour or so ago. He's like, "You're alone?" It's like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Well, be careful." Okay, solid advice. So I put the radio away, and I actually had turned the frequency dial accidentally. And he told me later, he talked to Lakpa Sherpa, who had 5 summits he was climbing with. He asked, and he had been climbing with me for the past month, asked him how long it would take me to get down to high camp. He said, "Oh, Brian, it'll take him 2 to 3 hours. It's just gravity at that point." But no one would hear from me for 7.
So what happened?
What happened? Cliffhanger. So you don't have much time. You can spend months trying to reach that point, and it's survival. You got to get down. So took my pictures, got a snack, got some water, and started heading down. Gravity on my side, slowly. And, I don't know, 10, 15 feet in, everything just went completely white. And I went snowblind. Mm-hmm. So snow blindness is the sunburning of the cornea with the goggle malfunction, the lack of oxygen and ozone, being in the death zone, blue eyes, being more susceptible. As soon as the sun banked off the ice, fried my cornea. Typically takes about 24 hours to return, and I wouldn't regain mine for a month and a half. Mm-hmm. So clearly I didn't have that, but I remember in that moment just dropping down, grabbing the fixed line the rope I was attached to, and assessing the situation, just going back into that military training, or thinking, I'm at the highest point in the world. I'm completely alone, and I'm blind. No one's coming to get me. And without overthinking it, without panicking, I stood up and I started moving. Just slowly, trying so hard to use my eyes. I'm not normally blind. Mm-hmm. With snow blindness, it's bright white. Mm-hmm. So if you put a light bulb right in front of your face and you move your finger, you know something just moved, but there's no way you can focus. And just very painful. It's like breaking potato chips and put them in your eyelids. So definitely don't recommend it. Mm-hmm. But using my other senses, I could hear the 50-mile-an-hour gusts coming over. I would hunker down, and it'd blow over me. I'd get up, take another step. Got to the top of Hillary Step, the 40-foot rock climb, reversed my gear, and tried to rappel down, and I kind of slipped out, pendulum down, hit the rock, landed pretty hard on a ice shelf. I remember just laying there because I got spikes. I got some dangerous things on my body. And just kind of assessing, am I broken? It's like, no, I'm okay. And just kind of sitting there, right myself, and then start moving. And this entire time, I never felt alone. I felt this presence around me. Mm-hmm. It's like, we're here right now. You close your eyes. I don't say anything. You know I'm here. Like, I can't explain it. I never felt alone. I didn't overthink of it or think about too much about it. It's just like, I just never felt alone. Mm-hmm. The next section was at Cornice Traverse, the 2-mile drop on each side. And I could really hear like the clanking of my carabiners on the rope, and then the wind, 50-mile-an-hour gusts coming over, and I would just hunker down, and it took me forever to get across that traverse. But finally it reached where it started going back up. So I had to climb up the south summit and got to the top of that. And that was a lot of work, just climbing. Like, at that point, I'm exhausted. Got to the top, and that's where I heard the pop, and my crampon had popped off, and I couldn't get down without that. Mm-hmm. So I went to look for it. I stepped with my crampon foot, gained purchase, stepped with my non-crampon. It slipped out, and I was head over heels. Mm-hmm. Just the scariest thing I've still ever experienced. Go to your roof, close your eyes, and jump off. Mm-hmm. It's so helpless. The rope shock loaded like hard, and it would save my life. I would have went for over a mile. Mm-hmm. And I was upside down. My mask ripped out of off my face, oxygen bottle coming out. And I remember my heart just racing, and it took so much to right myself. I was at such a down angle, and I just had to calm myself down. I was like going to give myself a heart attack. And I was able to finally do that. And there was just this bright thing above me, and I remember crawling up towards it, and it was my crampon. I was like, oh my gosh. So I torqued that down. I torqued my other one down, and decided I didn't want to go down the place I just fell, because it was getting a little more slushy up there. I side traverse over, and then a slab avalanche kicked off. So that's where there's a heavier ice or snow on top of lighter. So it's very common. My weight, and just later in the day, kicked it off. And I remember accelerating so fast, I grabbed the rope, it burned a line right through my glove. And I remember feeling that pain, but I stopped myself. But I'm hanging there, and my heart is just racing out of my chest, and I'm breathing so hard, I had to calm down. So I would just sit there and just breathe, and just, pressure breathe and box breathe, do everything I could, every type of trick I knew. Ended up getting down to where Pasong had turned around, and almost walked right past the oxygen bottle. And it's like this bright orange thing. I remember just laying down next to it, fumbling around with my regulator, knowing I was going to be out soon. And typically, if you run out of oxygen, even supplemental, you're not going to survive on Everest. It wouldn't work. And I just couldn't troubleshoot all day. I ended up putting the regulator back on my bottle, put that in. Still don't know why to this day, but put that extra 15 pounds in my pack, grabbed the non-functioning one, continued moving. Got to the balcony, and again, just this presence still there, not thinking about it. I called out looking for Pasang. He wasn't there. I assumed he went down. He wasn't feeling well. But I remember also at this point feeling like happy. Like I just made it through some pretty technical spots. I'm like, I can do this. And got a snack, got some water, reversed my gears, started rappelling. It's like 20 pitches of rappel down like rock and ice and snow. And just trying not to trip over myself with my crampons. Probably about 20 feet into it, my mask just rips into my face. Just sinks in, and I ripped it off, and I ran out of oxygen. And at this point, I'd been climbing for about 33 hours from the day prior to this point, in the death zone, completely blind, and trying so hard to do it on my own. And I just reached a point where I couldn't. And I remember just dropping to my knees and just praying, just very simple, like, God, I can't do this. Please help. And around the world at that time, my wife, Joanna, was woken up. She just felt the need to wake, and I need to pray for Brian. My best friend, same thing. People I didn't even know, they reached out months later. They knew I was climbing. Like, I don't know what was happening at this time, but I needed to pray for you. As soon as I said that prayer, it was like someone just reached down and picked me up. I felt this energy come over me, and didn't overthink it. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And first thing I did is I tried the extra oxygen bottle that had previously failed, and I got a positive flow. And I remember just taking like 5 deep breaths, and I've never experienced anything like this. It was like fire entering my veins. It burned. It physically burned. But I just had this life, and cranked up the regulators, just started, again, not overthinking it, just started rappelling as fast as I can, which is super slow, but just, trying to get down, be deliberate. And the last quarter mile, it's this ice bulge, just bulletproof ice. I remember just looking out, seeing rocks. They look like people. It's these blurry objects. And I'd wave, and I'd start getting closer. It'd be a rock, stupid rock. I'd like kick it. And then at one point I thought I died. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if this is heaven, this sucks. I remember thinking that. And then out of nowhere, Pasang, I never saw him come, and just hugs me. He's like, Brian, you alive? Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm so sorry I leave you. And I'm just like, don't worry about it, dude. Mm-hmm. Super chill.
I was just blind. It's all good, man. No.
I mean, we both made the decision. So he helped me get back to the tent, and I laid down. He helped me get my crampons off. I threw my camera to him. He was looking at pictures of the top and everything. And I passed out. I was out for like 15 hours. Lost 20 pounds in that one summit push. Black eyes. My eyes were glued shut. I kept waking up and like ripping them open, and I guess taking like selfies. I have pictures that I didn't even know I was doing. Pretty disturbing. But yeah, I was there. I mean, I still had to get down the mountain. We still had to get down Lhotse Face, across the ladders, all that, and 38 miles out. Wouldn't regain my eyesight for a month and a half.
But imagine getting and hitting that tent. I mean, like that overwhelming feeling of like you're alive. Yeah. You survive. What was that feeling? I mean, what I'm saying? Like you hit that. Like we've all kind of, that's a pretty extent, but you did it, Yeah. Like, how did that feel? Did you feel like overwhelming sense of like emotion? Mm-hmm. That was just like, you went through all of that. Like I said, it's powerful. You felt like someone was helping you along the way, and spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And it's just like survive. Yeah. You came on the other side of it. Most people don't. Right. You did.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a lot on that. survivor's guilt as well. But yeah, in that moment, yeah, I didn't stop crying. Like it finally came out in like the shakes and everything. In rescues, I mean, that happens. You suppress everything. You do what you have to do to save a life. In my case, I was doing everything I could to save my life until I couldn't. But I had suppressed so much. And yeah, as soon as I was there, I knew there was a lot to do, to get down, but at least I had Pasong, I had people, and I knew I had survived that. I didn't know what was ahead of me, but at that moment I was able to release and pass out. And I don't think I stopped crying I still haven't stopped crying.
No, well, like I said, I mentioned, I mean, it's life altering. It's huge. I mean, even just getting to Everest and doing it without any issue is life altering, let alone coming back from that. I mean, like I said, the avalanche, the going snowblind. I mean, like you're inches from death the whole time, falling, having to write like I can't imagine doing that, like 100 feet off the ground, at REI, let alone, like handling yourself on Everest, and so, we talked about faith before. I mean, did that, I would say that obviously helped. It felt, some of the presence with you. I mean, you talk about this, your faith in God help you through, like we talked about how it's a good base for life. How did that help then in those moments, to rely on that?
Yeah, I don't think I was, and that was the problem. I think I had that presence around me the entire time, and he was just waiting. It's like, keep trying on your own, dummy. Like my whole life, like whether I've witnessed miracles or not, I've never given credit. I've always taken the credit, and it was such a tangible experience, just such a cause and effect. And up there, the miracle is one thing, the power of prayer, the people that were woken up, people I didn't even know, that stuff was very, very heavy. Even my good friend, Kevin Houston, who's SEAL Team 6, who died in the Extortion 1-7, at that very moment, he was accepting Jesus in his life. Like he was further away and he was having some powerful moment. I had no idea. Like his wife, a year later, just told me, and I correlated those, like, oh my gosh, like, you wonder how all this stuff is all tied together, but it's very humbling for sure.
And now walking your way down 38 miles, is that like every step just being like, yes, like,
no,
you know what I mean?
Still
like
blind.
you're still blind, but
it sucked.
Yeah, it still sucks. But there's this like that everything's going to be okay kind of feeling still, or was there still a few spots where you're like, hey, this is like, you got to take it seriously and humble, but you are at that point, you're like, okay, like I got people with me, we got oxygen, we got food.
Yeah. So a lot of those things were there. But it was still this kind of impending doom still. It's when you're processing a near-death experience, it's a lot. Like I'd mentioned, like when I got back, Fox News and everyone's there. Everyone loves a survival story. They could care less about the survivor. And it's a lot. And when you're dealing with survivor's guilt, because there's 300 plus bodies on the mountain, dying for whatever reasons. Why am I here? Why am I alive? It's just one of those things. And over time, just being able to share my experience, and I see the impact, it's got to be part of it, but it doesn't make it any easier. So yeah, the whole time down, yes, there's people around me. Going across the ladders, crawling across the ladders is definitely probably funny looking, but nothing graceful, but it's all survival. And then just being able to talk to Joanna, because I got down to advanced base camp the next day, and I had a French Canadian climber dial her number on her sat phone, and I talked to her. She had already heard that I had summited just from the grapevine, and I was all emotional. I just said, "Hey, Joanna, I soloed the summit and I'm blind," and then the phone cut out, and I couldn't get her back. So it's like I own the worst call in history to a spouse. I couldn't even call her until the next day, till I got to base camp. And then we spoke for like an hour and just cried together, and I told her everything. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to process. It's still processing.
And so you make it down, aftermath of all this, like you said, the events that have all happened. Now you're still processing, or you're going through it. You have, and everyone's like wanting to hear your story. Like, what's the aftermath and what's the psychology after that? Like we were talking about at lunch, like, they like the story, but they don't care about the survivor, or, story survivors.
Yeah. And they don't know any better, right? Until you've been through it. It's like, you don't know, don't have that respect. It's kind of like when someone loses someone, no one knows what to say. So sometimes they'll avoid. When I got back, like even friends, and I don't know if I was pushing people away, if I was putting this out there or whatever, but I wanted to crawl into a hole. I just wanted to be with my family and just heal, and, physically and emotionally, mentally, everything. That wasn't the case, because everyone wanted me on stage and to tell my story, and I'm just weeping, I'm just clearly, dealing with something. And I don't think that was very healthy, but I don't know. I don't know what is healthy.
Yeah.
Getting through it, it's time and therapy and everything else.
Yeah. So that's Summit 4.
Well, 3, because I haven't summited Denali.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. You're only on number 3 technically, but 4 of the 7. And I mean, it's an amazing story. It's like I said, that type of experience. I mean, yeah, like I said, sometimes I'm lost for words. I mean, that freaks me out just thinking about it. It's the limited amount of climbing I've done, where you look down and you're like, oh, that's a 700-800 foot drop, let alone miles, let alone oxygen deprivation and all that kind of stuff. And, I mean, did it, you jumped into it right away with some of the talking, but did, like the actual processing of it, with that, like I said, has been taking years. Like what was the kind of the steps to, let's say help cope with it, but help get you through that? Like, is there things that did help better than others, or, talking with other, survivors, or talking with other people, or, we were talking a little bit about, finally talking to a therapist, and stuff like that.
Yeah. I fought that forever. My wife's a Christian counselor too.
Yeah.
Too close to home, but she definitely encouraged me. Yeah. Because, once you have something like that, it took years, and it was even writing my last book, Calm in the Chaos, and interviewing all the rescue swimmers and telling these untold stories, which not even realizing like that box, was very much shut. Not realizing in my life I had been chasing trauma. I grew up in a traumatic environment. I went in the military into a traumatic job. And then my grandpa, my father figure, shoots himself. It's like trauma after trauma after trauma. A lot of first responders and special operations, they get into that because, which I've noticed now, I didn't know at the time, because you're now in control of that trauma. You're trying to change that outcome. So kind of unconscious, but it makes you very effective at it, but it doesn't make you healthy unless you're dealing with that. So I go from that to then the traumatic environments of, high altitude mountaineering, specifically on Everest. So it's like these layers, and, that's when like panic attacks, and I would just wake up in the shower, sitting on the floor, I'd realize I'm on the floor crying. And like, oh, how'd I get here? So yeah, it took a lot of time. The biggest thing for me was getting out in the mountains. It's weird how that works, but it's, what's that, immersive therapy or whatever?
Immersion therapy.
Yeah. So that's later that year, I went to Antarctica and climbed the highest peak down there.
How was that?
It's cold. It was cold. It's -70. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. And I was down in Patagonia, just soloing, doing some stuff in Torres Paine before I flew down. But Antarctica is amazing. It's like being on the moon.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. And it's like it's a trek to get down there too. I mean, like, even, did you go by boat or by plane or?
No, I flew in a Russian Aleutian airplane. So it's the one where the nose like
Oh yeah.
comes open. They've put tractors. So yeah, and then you're like up on this. There's just a handful of climbers and scientists. They were filming Nat Geo Frozen Planet. That's when they were filming that down there. So
Oh, really?
Like,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
like in the huts, like watching the raw footage and stuff. Let's call it good. No, you don't just show up in Antarctica.
Yeah, yeah. You got it. It's a whole process. I bet it's a
there's
whole
a purpose.
process. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we're there, and then as soon as that door opens up, you're like, that's cold.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've seen I've even looked at doing that. Me and we like to travel, so like we're taking the kids to Scotland. We did Ireland a few, and then we backpacked before we had kids and got married. But Antarctica's been on our list, and I've looked into it. Yeah, I think they take you go to at the bottom of South America, and
Punta
then,
Arenas.
Yeah, and then
in Chile.
Yep, and then you. Typically, I don't say the affordable, but for us, it'd be like, all right, we gotta
just kayak
take
it.
That was what, really. But they take the boats, over, and then they have all sorts of, trying to figure that out, that'd be a trip.
You won't regret it.
Yeah, that's what we've seen.
Unless you crash.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's not fun. So then you did that one next, and then did you finish all 7? What was the other? Yeah.
I have to think of the order. So Antarctica, I think I tried Denali again. I snowboarded it, wrecked my feet, so made it up to close to high camp, and then brought it back out. Don't ever snowboard Denali.
And I was going to bring that up before. The guy went up with skis. That guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Was he going to ski down then? I mean, I don't know anything about Denali. So
there's different routes you can ski down, but the conditions have to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Because you'll hit some bulletproof stuff, and if you catch an edge, you're going to accelerate, and you're not going to stop. For me, I have a split board, so snowboard that splits in half, turns into skis with skins. But on Denali, you're carrying 60, 70 pounds in a pack, another 60 in a sled. So it's behind you. So just
oh wow, so you're really okay. Yeah,
it's a lot. And then coming down, you're carrying all that. Minus whatever you ate and stuff like that, but it's heavy. On a snowboard, you're sideways. Skis, at least you're going straight. It was dumping 3 feet of snow a night. So I'm leaning back, and then my sled would get ahead of me. And then I'm I'm going down. I just hit that thing, go down. It was brutal. No, that wasn't fun. But then went to South America, I believe, next, which is Aconcagua. Soloed that. So I've soloed the highest peak in the southern northern hemisphere. So I don't know if that's a record or not.
You should apply for it.
I don't care. I don't care about records.
Yeah.
They're just meant to be broken.
Yeah.
And then the final one was would be of the 7 was Kosciuszko in Australia, and it's 7,000 feet. And I brought my whole family, and we did it together. So it's 5 miles. I think they were maybe 5 and 8 years old. So that was really cool, really special to do that.
Yeah.
And it's not super dangerous, it's 5 mile walk up and down, and not that high, but it was windy and icy. I remember I was talking to someone, and you're on these grates and they're kind of icy. And I never lost eye contact. I was talking to someone, and I just saw, I think it was Emily, slides by. I just reach out and grab her, and I'm still talking. She always remembers that. Remember when I slid off the mountain? You just didn't miss a beat. So then I went back to Denali, maybe the next year, a couple years later, and had to get out of there. The guy I was with wasn't doing so well, so he actually fell through 3 crevasses. Just created an anchor system, got him out, and so.
He did it 3 times, or it was?
Fell into 3 separate.
Really?
It was a whiteout we're going through.
Okay. I was okay.
A lot of times you can't see these things. You just hear him yell and disappear, where he's free hanging. So there was a purpose for getting out of there on that one.
Jesus, 3 times he did that?
Yeah.
I'd be, wow. I bet after that 3rd, he's we're done. He's hey man, 3rd time.
Before the first, we were done.
Yeah, I was going to say, the first time I'd be let's go.
So I've never stood on top, so I've been within 1,000. So and I think that's part of my story. I think that's something that it's hard when you're going through it and you're very goal oriented, but it's also it's a good part of anyone's story. You can keep hammering and hammering until something kills you, or you can realize coming up short, it's okay.
Yeah.
Was this my goal or was this God's? It's maybe it's not meant to be. I mean, the mountain's always there. I can always go back and do it. Maybe I will. But right now, I have no plans.
Right now,
There's too many adventures in this world. And I just think as we get older, I turned 50 last year, our adventures, the boundaries we work within look different. And I think people really struggle, when you're going, whether it's your job, people don't know how to retire. They're just going, 100%, and then boom, retire. They freak out, don't know what to do. Military, same thing. You're ready to jump on a grenade for someone, and then you get out, and you don't have that purpose anymore. And I think the more we can adjust on the fly and course correct, the better off mentally we are to be prepared for that next phase of life, because things do get harder as you get older. I'm broken on so many levels. Right now I'm barely sitting here. My back is just like so tweaked. My knees, everything else.
This is funny you say that too, because I've had older guys that have retired, 20 years SEALs or whatever, and they're like, "How do you want to sit?" I was like, "However you want." And they're like, this is the only comfortable way, like my back, and they're all like, right over, it's like the only comfortable way to sit, But no, I agree, and I think, I agree with you. Kind of always thinking to the next step, but I don't know, pushing yourself at different points in your life. I agree with you. It looks different, even with me, I'm 38, I still have a few physical goal plans that I want to hit,
I was 36 when I climbed Everest.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. So thanks. I'm like, I guess I gotta go climb Everest now. I think I was 36 when they asked me. I was like, oh, I don't know about that, but it's fun challenge, but it's fun in that to get into that mentality. But I agree with you. There's, I think physically, I think doing stuff physically kind of helps push that boundaries. And even, honestly, sometimes the simplest things are therapeutic, like traveling. Me and my wife have been doing that, and that was a big decompression for me, even in my early 20s. Like when I got out, I was like, I need to see the world. Like I need to experience more than what is like around me. Luckily I was stationed out in Hawaii, but I couldn't wait to get off that rock. I'm a Minnesota boy, so I'm like, where's my snow? I want my I want. But I agree. I think because we travel and I think the previous generation, it's like, oh, we'll do it when we retire. We'll do it when we retire. And you just get to retirement. It's like, you're broken. You're, maybe next year, maybe, and it's, I don't know, getting into that. I agree with you, not physical goals, but also getting into that mental of like, okay, preparing yourself for the next transition, but almost like working yourself into it. Like say you're doing the 7 summits, you're thinking of something else. I'm sure you got other stuff cooking up in your mind.
Usually.
So and like I said, is there, you can kind of, I don't say elaborate on that, but you got like, I'll say, advice. You say you're in your 50s, you've done 7 peaks, you've, Navy rescue swimmer, some amazing stuff. Is there, like I said, some advice to kind of emphasize on it a little bit more? Like, maybe go ahead and pursue those goals. Try it physically, or just being like, go plan. I say to people, just go plan. Go buy the plane ticket. It's like when you got that permit, it's on. You can't go back.
Level of commitment.
Yeah.
Because you can wait for tomorrow or wait for anything else, but those are just obstacles you're putting in your place. My wife's dad did that plan. He was a dean at Long Beach, and he was planning retirement. He got a brain tumor and died. Never got to fulfill those dreams. And I think that weighed on us quite a bit as well. It's like you need to, within reason, live for today, because every day is a gift. You don't know if tomorrow's going to come. You just have no idea. So if you're waiting your whole life, 1, it may not come. 2, you may not be physically able to do something at that point. And, mentally, you won't know how to do it.
I agree. Yeah. I definitely agree with that, because that was always our motto, was tomorrow is never guaranteed, So, I agree. And especially in getting the travel, sometimes it's the simple thing, and I think I keep going to that because everybody wants to do that and they just don't, So I always like pushing, my family or my parents or whoever to be like, just go, go do it, And I've told everybody around me, it's like, oh, you travel so much. How do you do it? It's buy the plane ticket. You can afford it. Go on right now. It's $600 to get to Europe right now. Do it.
Nice.
Just do it, or something like that. Yeah. It cost us like $600-700 to go to Scotland. Wow. Yeah. So it's like, Or maybe go to Mexico. You want to go to do it, that's a $200 trip, or, through whatever, And,
Yeah.
and we go to Roatan. I go to Roatan like once or twice a year, and people are like, oh my God, it's like Sun Country's like $200, $300. It's a straight shot from Minnesota. Just commit. I think it's that commitment, like commit, do it, say it out loud, or put that money down, and it's not that much. Like you say, you're not climbing Everest. I mean, you're a big one.
But it might be.
But it might be.
It depends how you're wired.
Exactly.
What your thing is. I don't encourage people to climb Everest, but I encourage base camp or being
absolutely.
Immersed in Kathmandu or in the Khumbu Valley with the Sherpa. I mean, there's so much adventure in this world, and there's so many people that never leave their hometown, but they know everything.
Yeah.
They have all this experience. Like, okay, well, whatever you're getting is being fed to you, if you're getting it, online or in the news or whatever else, but feet on the ground, like there's
nothing like it. Yeah.
And to bring your kids too. That's huge. That just puts them in a whole different category, and they'll be more prepared as, one, to serve others, to have empathy, appreciate others. I mean, these are things that our kids, I wasn't given that. So maybe I'm overcorrecting.
No,
my bad.
Yeah, no, it's
Sorry,
okay. No, it's good. No, yeah. Well, like I said, I think, we do it because when we got married and we were like, well, we're going to keep doing this. We'll just, not every year, maybe not, but we're like, we're going to take them and, do, and my parents, I'm sure, we did it, it's I don't know, kids of the 2000s or 90s, it's like, oh yeah, we went to the Black Hills, you don't appreciate it, but at least you did it. My parents did as much as they could travel, but nobody did that back then, unless you were like one rich kid in our class got to go to, I don't know, fly to Hawaii like once a year or something, you know what I mean? Like that just didn't seem like a common thing, whereas now it seems a little bit, I don't say more common, but it feels like it. But I think that's what me and my wife talked about was like, yeah, we don't want, I don't say the kids to stop that, but we'll maneuver and save to do what we want to keep doing that because
I'm always broke because we're we're traveling living life.
It's like before you showed up I actually got an Airbnb was like, hey, they're gonna charge my credit card because we paid for half the Airbnb right away, and then you can pay for like a month. We leave in 2.5 weeks for Scotland, so it'll be like, hey, we'll charge you 2 weeks before we like we're paid in full, we're good, don't have to worry about when we're there. But I'm like, we got another $1,500 coming on let you know it's gonna hit the credit card, but it's worth it.
No, it really
at
is.
the end of the day, it's worth it.
Yeah, I never think about the money. You just figure that piece out. But it's like all these memories.
Yeah, it's funny to say that too. I mean, I have seen that for 10, 12 years, if not more. And now I am on the other side of that. And it's like, I don't miss one of those dollars, but those experiences are like, I mean, I was probably broke on some of those too. And you're just like, oh, here we are 10 years later. It's like, I don't remember what it was in my account.
You figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out, figure it out as you go. And so here we are, like I said, on the back end, what are you working on anything new now? Or what do you, like I know you're doing the speaking circuits and helping other people, and, we can kind of get into some other stuff too, if you want, on the production side of the house, or, writing, you've got Blind Descent, Calm in the Chaos. You're working on the third one, correct?
Yeah, I have a third, my first
fictional
fiction thriller, and that's we'll see where that goes. It's being pitched as we talk. Maybe I even have a message. I don't know.
Awesome! That's awesome.
Blind Descent is being turned into a movie, so they've wanted to turn that into a movie since day one.
Yeah, and let's. I mean, if you're cool with talking, let's talk about that. Like we talked before, even offline, I believe. About. You just weren't ready for that yet, and people have been after this story for, I mean, this was 2011, 2025, and people are still after it. I mean, some of the people you've said kind of attached or whatever, some heavy hitters, why was that? What's your process, from saying, now we're saying, let's go move forward to when the book came out in like 2014 or even previous to that.
Yeah. When I got back, I was introduced to a lot of speakers bureaus and, literary agent, movie producers. And it's one of those stories that you could take and Hollywoodize it as much as you want. And that's not me. This is my life. And I'm very concerned about that and my family and everything. So I put a pause on that and said, let me write a book, and wrote a book, and that came out. And then even then I've had, a bunch of reenactments, for different TV shows and different things that have been filmed, and that's fine because they're small segments. But I wasn't in a healthy place to have it on the screen, and just being patient, waiting for the right moment, if ever. And yeah, things just kind of worked out where, in Scotland, met someone who knew someone who's big in the industry, and now it's going to screenwriting, and it's Joanna and I will be involved throughout, and they're very respectful of us being involved in every aspect of it, and no need to over dramatize the trauma or anything. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. So it's an interesting process, and I'll keep sharing on socials and newsletters and stuff. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, that got my Calm in the Chaos podcast. So pumping out weekly episodes, interviewing people that rescue swimmers from the Apollo 13 pickup to Vietnam to, people that are current, just telling these untold stories, just me getting out of the way and just these amazing stories of rescues that have never been told. So that's been really cool. Yeah. I don't know. And then lots of talking, like traveling around, giving lots of keynotes, talks. It's cool.
That's awesome. So is that kind of like what you're doing full time? Like, speaking.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was working in high tech in fact, this year is when I decided to pivot and just do this full time, and we'll kind of see where it goes. But there's just a lot going on, and we'll be empty nesters here in a month. Yeah. So yeah.
It works out.
And it's amazing having a wife who's a therapist who has been able to go and talk with me. She's just so gifted, and people always want to hear her perspective. And I think marriages, I don't know, they can glean a lot from different experiences of where you bring in two opposite individuals, but you still have that respect and love for each other. And, allow each other to do things to a certain extent. She's, pretty extreme into scrapbooking, and I allow that.
She like hiding stuff around when she go off for 2 months on her scrapbooking, high altitude training.
Pretty much. Yeah. No, but we find our adventures together. Like I'm not off, leaving for weeks on a time or anything. Instead, I'll go for a walk with her and take the dogs, and I'll put a weighted vest on. So at least I'm getting a workout out of it. But yeah, no, we enjoy traveling. I mean, just seeing the world and being able to share our experiences. I mean, as you get older, you just have more wisdom that you've gained along the way. And I guess it's only wisdom if you share it. So, but
no, I agree. I agree with you a lot on that, because I think in the last few years, especially with my marriage, like I'd done deployment. It was Kuwait, but for her, it's a big deal. For me, it wasn't. I'm like, yeah, whatever, everything's fine. But it's big deal for her right before we got married, and then we had a bigger wedding after that. But yeah, some of the stuff, with like work, it's that being gone for you, like you're finding you were doing your ascents and all that stuff, and when you have a family, things just change. Same with me. It's like I'll get called off to do 2-3 weeks possibly for either a DP for a feature doc or commercial work or something like that. And especially with young kids now, that's what I'm in that realm. And it's like she's been amazing. My wife, the same thing. It's like holding the house down, and then also like being gone for that week or two, and you got to pick and choose your battles. And we talk about it all the time, and you have to be open, I think. And guys in our field, you did the extreme stuff after as a civilian, but like, guys that did 20, how many do we know are on their third marriage, fourth marriage?
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's not even fair. It's not fair to either.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, and I remember being in, I'm like, I knew from the get-go, like, luckily I almost got married. I'm glad I didn't. But then I did my multiple deployments, and then after I got out, I was like, I knew I'd be doing that, so I'm not going to drag somebody with me to do it, because it's like I was joking on the way when I picked you up from the airport when Ukraine kicked off. It's like, well, I can keep going back, I can keep doing this, but I'm trying to keep it to one marriage, and
it's a good goal.
Yeah, it's a good goal. Yeah, but you have to pick and choose those battles, and I eventually did go back for a project to Ukraine because it was close to my heart, and she was like, yeah, okay, like it's been some time, she's kind of like you. It's like, I know I have to let you go do your one crazy thing a year or so, or, every so often you just have to do it. Like there's something that has to be done.
Or, a lot of people may not understand that, but we can be the true people that we were built to be in our DNA when we're able to accomplish those things and actually do those things, because you're serving, in that case, especially serving so far beyond yourself. For me, it's harder to argue. That's why I was visiting orphanages, but full circle now that we look, and just the impact that my experience and my survival has had, it makes sense. But in the time, it's like...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But even, like I said, having that spouse and talking through that, keeping that strong. I think some people kind of overlook that. They think I'm going to do all this other stuff, but it's like your other half that helps you bring it all together, especially with, you've done it, I've done it, you're who's going to hold the house down? You want to get divorced, be a single dad, and then go down that route and try to climb Everest, like good luck, or I hate to say it, but we know, like I said, we know guys that stayed in probably a little too long around their third marriage, or their kids, they make jokes about it, but at the end of the day, it's like kids don't know you. They grew up with somebody else. Yeah. You're doing amazing stuff, but by our age now, or your buddies are retiring. I'm 38, so my generation is retiring this year. Yeah. It's like, all right, man. I wouldn't say was it worth it, but it's like the sacrifice of you know what you're getting yourself into, or you may not know your kids, or so you're picking and choosing your battles. And I think that's kind of tough for guys that are continue chasing the dragon. You got to know when to stop. You got to know when to push and pull, and to jump back. You can jump back in, but how long do you jump back in? How do you jump back out? Especially a lot of guys that I know that went into Ukraine, that were guys of my generation, our generation, that were like, and they don't come back. That was a pretty tough one with guys that we knew. And you're talking to, and they don't answer the phone anymore because they're got killed, or guys that are continue to push the envelope, and great guys, but. What legacy are you trying to leave, and what do you got kids at home, and it's tough.
It's tough. It's a balance.
It's a balance
for sure.
Yeah.
But is your purpose out there, or is it right here?
Exactly.
Or is it somewhere in between?
No, 100%. All right. I mean, that was awesome. Thanks for coming on. I mean, we crushed it. This is great. So again, where can people find you? Where can they find your book? Look out for you anywhere, and all that kind of stuff.
I'm out there.
Yeah.
Google,
Google Brian Dickinson.
BrianDickinson.net. It's my page, and I'm on all socials, and books are where you buy books.
Awesome. Hell yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.